Warning, this fic contains many dark and adult themes. For the full list provided by the author, please check the description below and proceed with caution. Welcome back, this is Veritaserum by Severitus 812, JessalynMichele, Book 3 of Harry Potter and 7 Years of Chaos. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoy, and subscribe for future stories. Please check the description for a full list of tags, and the link to drop a kudos for the original author. With that out of the way, let's get started. Chapter 10, Halloween. I'm here, Potter walked into Severus' classroom bright and early Saturday morning. Can I come in? Severus chuckled at his ward. I am aware that you are here, as I do have 2 working eyes, and yes, please do come in. Potter had the presence of mind to blush at Severus. Guess I'm already inside, huh? He grinned sheepishly. Sorry, sir. It is no bother. Severus stood up and cleared the desks that were in the front of the room, and gestured for Potter to stand in the center of the clearing. Now, did you eat breakfast? Yes, sir, Potter bobbed his head. Severus looked him over carefully, and was relieved to see the shadows beneath his eyes had lessened since Wednesday. Hardly surprising considering he'd sent Mavis with a dreamless sleep every night since then, though he wouldn't put it past Potter to still have fitful sleep, even with the specifically tweaked potion Severus designed for him. Good, said Severus. Now, do you recall our conversation once before regarding how grey magic is entirely intent-based? Potter bit his lower lip as he tried to remember. Oh, when you traded 3 spells for me to put my knife up, yes, sir. Severus should have known Potter would remember conversations in relevance to deals he enacted. The Patronus Charm is considered to be a light-oriented spell because it requires a vast amount of positive energy to be channeled through a happy memory. Are you following? Potter nodded again, so Severus continued. You will clear your mind and then focus on a single powerful happy memory. Once you have that memory pulled up, you will flick your wand. Potter smirked up at him and Severus rolled his eyes. Flick your impertinent wrist then, brat, and you will say the charm, expecto patronum. Do you understand? Yes, sir, but are we doing it in here? Potter asked. I thought we'd do it outside or something. Why would we go outside? Severus asked, bemused. Potter shrugged. Don't we need a Dementor or something to practice on? Severus raised his brows incredulously. The child truly had no sense of self-preservation. Perhaps you have missed the many times I have conjured my Patronus in front of you, but contrary to your belief, we do not require the presence of a Dementor to complete the charm. Oh, yeah. Potter blushed again and ducked his head. Severus chuckled lightly, so the child knew that he was not unhappy. Are you prepared to clear your mind? Potter nodded and Severus watched as he breathed deeply. Very good, he said in a calming tone. Now pull up a happy memory, a powerful one that brings you joy just by recalling it. Potter twisted his lips to the side and thought for a moment before nodding. Okay, he said. Now, while I am pleased with your penchants for non-verbal magic, today I would prefer you speak the incantation aloud. This way I can ensure you are using the correct pronunciation. Focus on your memory and pull the magic through your body to your hand. Expecto patronum. Potter took a deep breath and held his right hand in front of his body. Expecto patronum. A sudden whoosh of silver gas erupted seemingly from Potter's fingertips. Excellent, Severus said, genuinely impressed. Harry, that was excellent. Potter looked up at him with his mouth agape. But I didn't do anything. You did, Severus assured him. That is much more than any other 13-year-old would be able to conjure. But it was weak, Potter said. You make an entire animal and I just made some smoke. Did you truly expect to achieve a fully corporeal Patronus on your first attempt? The expression of indignation on Potter's face was answer enough. Arrogant, Severus scoffed. The power is obviously there, Harry. You need a stronger memory. Which one were you using just now? When I cut Lestrange open after he dueled Ron, Potter grinned. Of course that would be a memory Potter has classified as happy. Perhaps you should try again with a less bloody memory, Severus suggested. If you are able to recall, I did say this was an incredibly light-oriented spell. Oh yeah. Let's try again with a happy and blood-free memory, said Severus, whenever you are ready. Severus watched as Potter took another deep breath, his face becoming blank and impassive. Expecto patronum. Nothing happened. What the fuck, Potter snarled. Language, Severus warned him. What memory was that? Potter glanced around quickly before he smirked. When I stole that red rock, he whispered. For fuck's sake, Harry, Severus groaned. Severus hated hearing Potter refer to the priceless, unique, and powerful stone as that red rock. You're a terrible influence, Potter laughed. Come on, that was a great memory, and nobody was bleeding. Well, Potter grimaced. I mean, the glass from the mirror left some cuts, but that wasn't my fault, was it? It was actually, if Severus remembered correctly, which he absolutely did, Potter was the one who shattered the mirror, but that was hardly the point. Clearly vindictive pleasure does not count as true joy, he said dryly. Why not a memory of flying, or spending time with your friends? Good idea, sir. I'll think about flying. Potter grinned before clearing his mind and his face again. Expecto Patronum, Potter cried. A silver cloud materialized from Potter's mere fingertips and hovered between the two of them. Potter hissed loudly. Severus was sure it was a swear. That is already an improvement, Harry, said Severus as the cloud disappeared. Much better than your first attempt. It's not enough, Potter said through a clenched jaw. I don't want to improve, I want to do the spell. I don't understand why it's so hard. Severus had multiple theories on why the charm would be difficult for the mentally ill, grey-oriented, chaotic demons standing in front of him, most of which Potter would not enjoy hearing. This charm can oftentimes be more difficult for a cluemen such as ourselves, due to the emotions required for the patroness, Severus assured him with the nicest of the possible explanations. It took me nearly a full year of continuous practice before I achieved it. What memory do you use, sir? Severus felt remarkably wrong-footed by Potter's seemingly innocent question. I used to use memories of your mother and I at a concert, he said evasively. Used to, Potter said. What ones do you use now? Typically you brat, he grumbled. One last try now, okay? This charm can be exhausting both magically and mentally. Potter grinned at him a bit shyly. Okay, let me think of a real good memory, he said, furrowing his brows down in thought. No blood, nothing vindictive. Severus watched in both amusement and exasperation as Potter mumbled to himself and struggled to find an appropriate memory. Potter's misunderstanding of a happy memory would be much more entertaining if it didn't break Severus' heart the slightest bit. Maybe I have one, Potter eventually said. Very well, whenever you're ready. Potter raised his hand to chest height, scrunched his eyes closed and cried, Expecto-Patronum. The largest silver cloud yet materialized between the two of them. It was indistinguishable, yet Severus felt sure that when Potter did master the spell, he would find himself with a four-legged patroness. Very good, he said as Potter panted and stared wide-eyed at the cloud. Come, sit now, that is enough for one morning. Potter slumped down in his accustomed seat in front of Severus' desk. Severus summoned a coffee tray and poured them each a mug. Thanks, Potter mumbled, drinking deeply. You understand the theory and the incantation. You are doing everything correct, Severus said. I believe you will just need to work on identifying the proper memory. Incidentally, what memory did you use that last time? It was your strongest attempt yet. Did he need to know? No. Was he incredibly curious? Yes. Potter blushed and stared at a spot behind Severus' head as he answered. Susan said she loves me, he mumbled. I was thinking of that, was I? Severus was surprised that Potter was able to identify a memory that made him happy, that did not involve any of his usual unethical antics. It must have made you happy when she said that for your charm to be so strong, he said. He actually had no idea why it hadn't been strong enough to work. Suppose so, Potter said, shifting slightly in his seat. Never heard that before, have I, so I didn't know what to say. Severus could have cursed himself. Of course Potter had never heard it before. Who would have told him? Petunia. I regret that you have never heard it in a memory you can recall before now, he said slowly, though I am confident your parents would have undoubtedly said it multiple times a day to you before they passed. Doesn't really matter, does it? Potter shrugged. Even if they loved me, they're dead now, but Susan says she loves me and she hasn't ever lied to me before. So I suppose she's not lying now, right? It is unlikely that Miss Bones would lie about her adoration of you, no, Severus agreed. I'm sure the vicious badger that tormented Albus cursed me out verbally on multiple occasions and redecorated the defense corridor likely holds you in high regards. Potter suddenly grinned, his green eyes sparkled with mischief. "You heard about the defense corridor," Potter said. Severus snorted, as if any of the professors missed it. Pomona herself had came to ask Severus what Lupin had done to Potter for Bones to attack him. Apparently Severus was not the only one who immediately identified the girl's handwriting along with her unique style for leaving profanities on professors' doors. "I did," he said. "Lupin told our class he was being pranked. I said it's a good thing he likes pranks then, right?" Severus laughed sharply at that. Lupin was a big fan of pranks when he was in school, he agreed, his dark eyes now sparkling with amusement. "Oh, don't worry, sir," he said. "People do grow up," Potter scoffed. "Told him if people didn't try and make up for what they did, then they didn't really change, did they?" Severus looked at Potter with a sense of fond approval. "What did he say?" "Kept me after class after I caught his pet on fire and—" "Stop," Severus sighed and summoned a pain reliever to head off the headache he knew he would have any moment. Potter watched curiously as Severus downed it. "You may continue, though I would like to hear more about you catching Lupin's pet on fire." "Not my fault," Potter defended himself. "He asked how I'd stop a red cap from attacking me, so I caught it on fire." Severus stared at Potter for a moment. You burnt the red cap alive, because Lupin asked you how you would stop it from attacking you." "Yeah," Potter said slowly, his brows furrowed once again. "And it would have worked, right? I mean, if it was attacking me then it would be trying to kill me, so catching it on fire would save my life." Severus had been extremely wrong in his earlier observation of Potter's sense of self-preservation. The child had morphed that sense into something feral, vicious, and unrelenting. If his life was in danger, then he would end the threat. Quirinus was attempting to kill him, so Potter fought to kill him first. Gilderoy threatened his and Draco's lives, so Potter killed him. Lupin asked how he would stop an attack from a deadly creature, so Potter caught it on fire. In Potter's mind, it was simple. He truly had no idea how his instincts were warped into something terrifying. "Were you assigned detention?" Severus likely wouldn't have given Potter detention for it, but he also would have known better than to ask Potter such an open-ended question. "Nope," Potter rolled his eyes. "He apologized to me." "Did he?" Severus asked curiously. "For what?" "For last Friday night. He apologized for telling me about your boggart." Severus was begrudgingly impressed with Lupin. He didn't think the man had even comprehended how angry Potter would be at his actions. "See, I knew I wasn't the only one thinking that," Potter cried. "He didn't even properly apologize for that, really. He just said he was sorry for pushing me see my boggart. Then I asked if he apologized to you." "To me? Why would Lupin apologize to me?" Potter gave him a look of disbelief, so strong it was nearly comical. "Seriously, didn't he try and kill you? Drive you crazy when you were students? Accuse you of being mean to me after he saw my boggart? Should I go on?" As warped as Potter's sense of morality and ethics may be, his fierce loyalty to Severus never failed to make him smile. "I do not require an apology, nor would I accept one from him." Severus sighed as he eyed Potter. As much as he wished ill on the wolf, it would be childish to not make sure Potter was aware of the view Severus had of the situation. "Lupin was likely unaware that Black had sent me to his hideout that night," he explained. "While it was incredibly irresponsible of Lupin to allow his friends to know of where he transformed at, I do not believe he alone would have orchestrated an attempt on my life." He sighed before resentfully adding, "I do not believe that Lupin would have done it at all, considering the penalty for a werewolf who commits murder during a full moon is death." "Then he should have kept better control of his friends," Potter said coldly. "Made them take a vow not to tell anyone, right?" Severus felt uneasy at Potter's casual way of believing that Lupin should have enacted unbreakable vows with his school-aged friends. "Harry, how many unbreakable vows have you enacted?" Potter looked incredibly guilty as he glanced around the room quickly. "I dunno," he said, "maybe 7. 7? Severus nearly choked. "Fuck, Harry, what on earth were you thinking? Do you know how dangerous it is to bind people to a secret that will kill them if they reveal it, let alone that many secrets?" "Oh, I don't bind them to their lives," Potter said airily, "unless it's something important like the prophecy or Lockhart. Usually I make them swear on their magic like you did when we met." When Severus first regret making that vow, it was because he was afraid he may one day snap and accidentally attempt to shake some sense into Potter. Now he can see what a terrible influence he was on Potter for more than just his language. "That was an extreme and rare thing of me to do," Severus stressed. You should not enact unbreakable vows for anything less than life or death situations. I apologize for leading you to believe otherwise. But how else are you supposed to tell someone a secret? Severus shook his head at Potter's deep distrust of people. You have told me a great many number of secrets without requiring me to take a vow, he said. Yeah, because I trust you, Potter shrugged. Exactly, said Severus. You have to trust people. Not everyone, mind you, but you have to decide which people you can trust and decide if your secrets are worth sharing with them. Potter gave him a disbelieving look. But people lie, he said, and words don't mean anything, right? So when someone says, I promise, if there aren't any consequences, then they'll just break that promise, yeah. Or they may keep their word and be even more trustworthy, because they protected your secret even without consequences, Severus pointed out. PFT, Potter scoffed again. Do you trust anyone to keep your secrets? I trust you, Severus said simply, which, as wild as it was not untrue. He had no secrets from this scrappy little harbinger of chaos. Potter knew his past, his regrets, his accomplishments, and his many mistakes. Severus could scarcely imagine a scenario where the incredibly loyal child would cause him to regret the trust he placed in him. Anyone else? Potter asked. Severus hesitated, thinking quickly. He had used to trust Albus nearly as much as he did Potter, before he realized Albus was willfully blind to a great many things. Lucius for some things, Narcissa for most things, he said instead. But you only trust me with everything, Potter accurately guessed. Harry, I have trusted many people in my life. Most of them happen to be dead now, Severus said, exasperated. I had complete trust in Evan, Regulus, and Barty. Your friends are still alive and have thus far proven themselves trustworthy. Your friends were all Death Eaters, Potter smirked. I dunno if you're a good judge of who I should trust. Your friends are in a gang, he said sardonically. I am unsure how you determined that to be better. And truly it was. Potter and his gang had already wreaked more havoc in 2 years than Riddle had his entire school career. Severus could only hope that Potter was capable of change, with the guidance Riddle never had. Oi, Potter cried, my gang is nothing like yours was. I believe if you added a tattoo to their forearms, the differences would shrink quite a bit, Severus smirked. Potter visibly perked up at that. What is the point of the tattoo? He said, glancing at Severus' covered arm with interest. Because... No, Severus stopped him immediately. If I see even a drip of ink on any of your friends' arms, I will have you in detention well into your 30s. Potter huffed and crossed his arms sullenly. I almost got a tattoo once, he said petulantly. A kid at one of the shelters had a kit and offered me one. I was gonna do it, but he wouldn't tell me what he wanted for it first. Severus silently thanked Merlin for once that Potter's barter system has apparently been a long-established habit. I cannot imagine the level of unsanitary that a tattoo given in a youth shelter would have been, but I find myself incredibly grateful you declined his offer, Severus said. Potter shrugged before glancing at the clock. I should go. Luna wants to find that dog today. Told her it was starving and she said we should bring it snacks. Potter grinned. Luna and Draco are both mad about animals. He hesitated before asking, I have practice next weekend. Flint's crazy about winning the cup again for his last year. I dunno when I'll be able to come try that charm again. Severus waved off his worries as Potter got to his feet. All you need to do now is find the proper memory, so I will give you homework that I would like you to achieve. Firstly, attempt to find a memory that brings you true happiness. Secondly, he gave Potter a serious look. Make an honest effort towards trusting at least one of your friends with a secret. Nothing illegal, he said hastily. Merlin forbid Potter confess to murder to one of his less loyal friends, but something you wouldn't normally tell them. Potter gave him a wary look. What if I don't do that second one? Nothing, Severus said simply. But I believe you would be pleased to learn you can trust your friends without enacting an unnecessary vow. Potter rolled his eyes as he edged towards the doorway, in the vigilant way Severus has grown used to. We'll see, he said evasively. I'll let you know, yeah. Severus shook his head, as was his own routine, after having lengthy conversations with his ward. Was it any surprise Potter had difficulties trusting others? The first time someone told him they loved him, in his memory, was last week. His lips twitched as he created lesson plans later that evening. Potter demanding an apology on Severus' behalf was very like his mother. If Potter hadn't confessed to setting a caged creature on fire immediately after that, Severus could almost trick himself into believing the child ever stood a chance at resembling Lily Evans for more than her eyes. Lily was a rare soul, kind to a fault, loyal to those she considered her friends, and more joy in her heart than anyone Severus had ever met. She had her morals and values and held others to her exacting standards. Severus knew when he insulted her that it could never be forgiven, regardless of the circumstances. Potter also held others to his standards, but as the child had such a relaxed idea of right and wrong, it was a much lower bar. Keep his secrets, don't touch him, fight on his side when fights arose, and Potter was as loyal as they came. In the deepest part of his heart, Severus preferred the company to Potter than that of Lily. Before he fell asleep that evening, he suddenly remembered what Potter admitted to him. "Susan said she loves me. Never heard that before, have I?" 20 points to Hufflepuff, he murmured as he extinguished his lights. Over the next few weeks, Severus had yet to decide which was more annoying during this time, Remus Lupin or Harry Potter. Potter had developed a new habit of popping up at the least likely times, with the most horrifying ideas for a Patronus memory. Immediately after dinner. "What about when I started my gang?" "No," whispered as he turned in his potions during class. "When I broke Parkinson's wand." "No." Potter even had the audacity to send him a note during breakfast one morning. "When I sued Dumbledore." Severus sought his eyes out at the Slytherin table and shook his head slightly. He was incredibly fond of the child, but damn if he wasn't exhausting. Remus Lupin began his own annoying approach towards making Severus wish for an early retirement. "Thank you so much, Severus," he said when he brought him the Wolfsbane potion one evening. "I really can't explain to you how much this means to me." Severus curled his lip up and made to leave the office quickly when Lupin called him back. "Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you," he said. "God damn you, Potter." Severus had no interest in hearing a meaningless apology from Lupin for actions he took 15 years ago. "What?" he asked sharply, turning back around. Lupin pulled himself up straight and looked Severus square in the eyes. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "I know that my friends and I were gits to you in school, and I want to believe that if James and Peter were here they would apologize as well." Severus rolled his eyes as Lupin swallowed sentimental fool before continuing. "But they aren't, so I'll say it on behalf of all three of us. We were immature, unreasonable, and hurtful, and I am sorry for that." Severus would one day find a way to make Potter as terribly uncomfortable as he now was. "Contrary to what Potter may have insinuated, I do not require an apology, Lupin. We can continue on as we have until now by pretending the other does not exist." He turned on his heel and strode quickly out of the office before Lupin said something else insufferable. Unfortunately, it seemed as if Lupin took Potter's chastisement to heart. Severus found himself being chatted up by the wolf multiple times a week. Finally, one evening during dinner, when Lupin was blathering on about a potion he read about that he thought Severus might find interesting, he snapped. "We are not friends," he interrupted Lupin with a hiss. "I have no idea what is going through your mind, but you and I are not friends." Lupin looked surprised for a second, before giving Severus his typical cheerful smile. "We could be," he offered. "Maybe we should have been friends this whole time." Severus had a fleeting reminder of his burning envy at the close-knit group of self-proclaimed marauders in his school days. 12-year-old Severus would have done anything to be friends with Remus Lupin. 33-year-old Severus was not quite so desperate. "I have no interest in friendship, Lupin," he sneered, "especially not yours." "Why?" Severus slammed his fork down and gave Lupin a look of incredulity. "Were you not just weeks ago in my office accusing me of behaving abusively towards my ward?" he hissed quietly. "You broke Potter's trust. You disregarded his mental health in allowing him to vanish after a traumatic event. I do not like you, and I have no want to be your friend." Lupin blinked at him in surprise. "You and Harry are a package deal, aren't you?" he mused. "Harry doesn't like me because I was cruel to you in school. Now you say you don't like me because I handled the Boggart situation with Harry very poorly." "Potter is my student and my ward," Severus said stiffly. "I do not make his decision for him, and I dislike you for a great number of reasons, few of which have anything to do with Potter." Lupin gave him a crooked smile. "I doubt anyone makes decisions for that kid," he chuckled, "but you influence him quite a bit, don't you? Harry would never befriend someone who he thought you didn't like." Severus was sure he was right, but decided he'd said quite enough for the evening. "If you'll excuse me, I have better places to be." "I'll see you at the feast tomorrow," Lupin asked as Severus quickly made for the exit. Severus ignored him. Perhaps if the man spent more than half a minute near Hermione Granger, he would know that feast days have mandatory attendance, thus making Severus' appearance a foregone conclusion. The next evening, as Severus made his way to the Great Hall, he was once again waylaid by Potter. "Sir, I thought of one." Severus sighed at the sight of Potter's bright eyes. That likely meant another terrifying memory that child has classified as happy. "Let's hear it," he said. Potter was practically beaming now. "Remember the day you gave me my letter, that one, what d'you think?" That actually may work." "That is an excellent idea," he said. He saw the corridors were mostly empty as most students were already at the feast. "Would you like to try now?" Potter nodded eagerly before inhaling deeply and clearing his mind. "EXBCTO he shouted. Potter opened his eyes eagerly, and his face filled with disappointment at the sight of the rather large and unformed Patronus cloud. "Son of a bitch," he swore, "why won't this damn spell work?" Severus' lips twitched the very slightest amount at Potter, adopting his own swears. "Language," he murmured. I suppose it wasn't a happy enough memory. He tried to consider the encounter through Potter's point of view. "Were you not initially under the mistaken belief that I was attempting to kidnap you for some nefarious purpose?" "Yep," Potter admitted shamelessly. "Thought you were a creep, did I? Shouldn't have wore your robes. But I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking about being special and going somewhere with beds for 10 months a year." "Well, that explained it. Your memories all seem to have multiple layers of emotion attached to them," Severus explained delicately. "I believe even the happy ones you are choosing must have a layer of anxiety or other negative emotion that is impacting the charm's ability to work." Potter hissed loudly and rolled his eyes. "Whatever," he muttered, "I'll get it eventually." "You will," Severus assured him as he guided the child towards the Great Hall. "Have you made any progress on the second assignment I gave you?" Potter hummed evasively. "Haven't made up my mind, have I?" he eventually said. "I'll let you know, though." Severus held the door open for Potter as he sighed again. One secret. He is asking Potter to tell one friend one secret without the use of an unbreakable vow. "Very well," Severus said. "Enjoy your evening, and you will find me in the astronomy tower tonight if you require anything." Potter gave him a curt nod as he made his way to the Slytherin table. Severus suffered through the Halloween feast with its usual fanfare, made worse only by the mopping presence of Lupin beside him. Apparently on the anniversary of the Potters, Death Lupin wasn't up for chatting, thank Merlin. He watched curiously as his snake stopped by Potter's seat and offered handshakes, which Potter rejected, and condolences, which Potter scoffed at. According to his current 7th-year prefect, the rumor that Potter was the heir of Slytherin was still rampant in his house. Clearly the accolades that came along with it earned Potter some form of respect to be shown on this night. Before the entertainment began, Severus slipped from the room. His presence was mandatory for the feast. He wouldn't linger longer than he had to. He made his way to the astronomy tower and leaned against the railing as he thought of the many changes that had occurred since last Halloween. Potter was expelled and scrounged around the underbelly of London for 2 weeks. Potter nearly died from a basilisk wound. Potter killed a man. Potter forced Lucius into the role of a follower. Potter had openly named Albus Dumbledore as an enemy to himself. Potter may or may not have a severe mental illness that he refuses to acknowledge or treat. It had been an eventful year, and Severus was struggling to find positives. "I'm a terrible guardian," he groaned as he rubbed his eyes wearily. He looked up at the stars and hoped that somewhere Lily was reassuring him that he was trying his best. Because he was. But damn if it was good enough or not. Severus summoned Mavis and asked him to bring him his scotch and a tumbler from his private quarters. It would be recklessly irresponsible to summon them and allow any wandering student to pluck the bottle from the air. Severus was working on his second glass as Minerva's silver cat appeared beside him. "Hogwarts is on lockdown. Meet me in the hospital wing immediately. Send any students you encounter to the Great Hall. I have your ward." "Son of a bitch," Severus swore as he ran quickly down the stairs. He very nearly stumbled in his haste and cursed himself for drinking. He knew better. Potter seemed to be cursed to have something outrageous happen every damned Halloween. Though Severus couldn't imagine what his ward could have done to cause the entire castle to go on lockdown. He burst into the hospital wing and searched frantically until his eyes landed on Minerva. She was standing beside Poppy and Potter, who was seated on the bed. "Snape," Potter said, relief filling his face. "Tell them I'm fine." "What happened?" Severus demanded from Minerva immediately. "Sirius Black happened," Minerva said, her lips thin and her nostrils flaring, "and your foolish child attempted to duel the maniac." Sirius Black. Potter's curse on Halloween truly had no bounds. Severus looked Potter over from top to bottom and felt his chest loosen as the child appeared to be unharmed. "Someone quickly explain what happened." Minerva gave Potter a look of irritated exasperation. Potter sighed. "So we got back to the common room, yeah, and Ron was upset because Scabbers was clawing him and freaking out and jumped." "I don't care about a rat," Severus hissed. "Inform me of what happened with Black." "That's what I'm trying to do," Potter hissed back. Severus saw Minerva smile and gave her a cold look. Potter was not amusement in the slightest at the moment. "Anyway, so Scabbers runs off, and Ron goes up to our room to see if he went there, and he screams bloody murder, so I go running after him." "Of course you did," Severus groaned. "Continue." "Guess who was in our room? Black, so I start trying to cure. Potter caught his eye and Severus shook his head slightly. Potter did not need to admit to curses in front of present company. "I tried to stop him," he said instead, "but he shoved me and just ran. I couldn't get a clear shot in the common room, but Potter pulled a large knife from his robe pocket. I summoned this at the last second." Severus would be a naive fool to not believe Potter would not take to carrying the damn weapon around with him. "And then," he asked with a pointed look at Minerva. "I was alerted by Miss Owens that Sirius Black was inside the castle," she said. "By the time I arrived, your child," she gave Potter a disbelieving look, "was attempting to sneak out to search for the man single-handedly." Potter shrugged. "I alerted Albus immediately, who is now organizing a search of the castle. The students have all been corralled into the Great Hall for the night, and I brought Potter here to ensure he was not injured." Severus gave her an appreciative nod, before glancing towards Poppy, who shook her head. "Besides a bad case of idiocy, I believe Mr. Potter is fine," she sniffed. "I'm not an idiot," Potter muttered. "You said that the students are all congregated in the Great Hall," Severus asked Minerva. "Yes, I believe Albus should be there shortly as well to check in with the prefects and head boy and girl," Minerva said. "I will speak with him regarding the search then. Come along, Potter, I will return you to the Great Hall." Potter jumped to his feet with a smug look towards Poppy. "They were talking about keeping me all night," Potter said the second the doors closed behind them. "Knew you'd come get me." Severus rounded on Potter at the flippancy in his tone. "Have you lost your goddamned mind?" he snarled. "You confronted Black on your own." "Don't say that," Potter said coldly. "I didn't lose my mind. I told you I was going to kill him, and I will. He was in my room with a giant fucking knife, wasn't he?" "You are a brain-dead moron, Potter," Severus sneered. He knew his worry and fear were coming out as condemnation and fury, but Potter made the wrong choices every single damn time. "Am I?" Potter hummed, inching away from Severus slightly. "So I suppose if you're so smart then you know how Black got in the castle and in our room." "You've given the password to half the damned castle," Severus said harshly. "Who knows which idiot child left the password lying around?" "Don't call them idiots," Potter said, taking half a step further from Severus. "They're not idiots and neither am I, sir." Severus glared at Potter even as he recognized the own unfairness of his words. Potter was no idiot. But Merlin if he wasn't the most arrogant and reckless child Severus had ever met. "You will stay in the hall with your friends," he said. "You will not even attempt to leave the hall, is that clear?" "Crystal," Potter spat. Severus strode towards the hall, beckoning Potter to follow alongside him. He kept a watchful eye out as they went for any sign of someone who did not belong in the corridors. Once they reached the hall entrance, Severus stopped before opening the doors. "Stay away from Lupin," he said. "It is unlikely that Black entered the castle unaided, and he is still the most likely perpetrator." "Brill," Potter said, clenching his jaw and rolling his shoulders. "Scene I go now." Severus hesitated at the visible signs of stress Potter was exuding. I apologize, he said with a sigh. I was worried for your safety and shouted unfairly at you. It will likely happen many more times as you insist upon putting yourself in danger. Potter looked up warily at him. It's not a real apology if you aren't going to change, he said with his green eyes narrowed. Perhaps not, Severus allowed, though it is an honest apology. Potter chewed his lower lip for a moment before nodding curtly. I didn't lose my mind and my friends are not idiots. I am aware, Severus said, counting his breaths to keep his voice level. I believe I already said that I apologize. Potter said, but you're being a bastard. You attempted to kill a man in a crowded common room, Severus pointed out. You have practically defined the phrase, delinquent brat. The edges of Potter's lip curled slightly up, apparently pleased with Severus' sardonic retort. Severus opened the hall doors and was immediately surrounded by Potter's entourage. You stupid idiot, Miss Bones yelled. What were you thinking? Potter rolled his eyes and ushered his friends to an empty corner. He caught Severus' eyes once more and nodded slightly. Severus watched for a moment as Potter spoke in a hushed tone to his friends before he left the hall in search of Albus. As he told Potter, there was no way Black entered Hogwarts without assistance, and the most likely culprit was the damned wolf. He swore that if he discovered proof that Lupin was assisting Black in any way, he would borrow Potter's sword himself. Chapter 11, Hogsmeade. The school talked of nothing but Sirius Black for the next few days. The theories about how he had entered the castle became wilder and wilder. Hannah Abbott, from Hufflepuff, spent much of their next herbology class telling anyone who'd listen that Black could turn into a flowering shrub. Susan spent just as much time trying to make a list of possible nearby places Black would be hiding. The main one they agreed on was Hogsmeade. It's nearby, it's unwarded, it's the perfect hiding spot, she said during lunch one afternoon. We are not spending our first Hogsmeade trip searching for Sirius Black, Draco said. We are going to go to Honeyduke's, visit Zonko, and get butterbeers in the Three Broomsticks, got it? Are we? Harry gave him a pointed look, and Draco pouted. I don't want to hunt for my crazy cousin, he said in a voice just a couple shades away from being a whine. Harry isn't going to go looking for Sirius Black, he's going to let the professors handle it, right? Hermione said, setting everyone else off into a fit of laughter. Yeah, that sounds like Harry, Ron snorted. Can we save it for our second Hogsmeade visit? Draco asked hopefully. Not a chance, Harry said. We're going to look tomorrow. Ultimately, the decision was taken right out of his hands. After telling Luna goodbye and promising to bring her back a surprise, do you want a chocolate frog or Black's finger? The 8 third years headed towards Hogsmeade. Harry was getting the uncomfortable feeling of being watched all the way past the gates, and while they were on the path, they were about to enter the village when he realized what the problem was. Son of a bitch, he swore loudly in Parseltongue. What's wrong? Neville asked. Harry glared around him. If Snape set you up to this, I'll kill you both, he called loudly. His friends were all looking nervously at him, but Harry was focused on the tree line, where he could feel someone's eyes on him. End their spell, he thought with a sharp tug on his magic. He watched with satisfaction as a tall, lanky, pink-haired witch appeared from seemingly nowhere. Watch her, Harry, she grinned a lopsided smile, seemingly unembarrassed at being caught. Kingsley wasn't exaggerating, was he? Harry already had his newly obtained knife out, and had taken a few steps in front of his friends. Who are you? Harry asked harshly. Who are you? The witch mimicked him as she shifted her appearance. Harry blinked and was suddenly staring at a carbon copy of himself. Brill, he breathed. He looked into his own green eyes and grinned sharply. You're Nymphadora. Tonks if you don't mind, she said. Oh, we're cousins, Draco said from behind Harry. He made to step up to the witch and Harry shifted slightly, keeping him behind him. You didn't explain why you're here, Harry said to her. In the back of his mind, he wished he had grabbed his pocket knife instead of this dagger. It was too long to twirl between his fingers. Minister's orders, she grinned, Harry's face taking on an entirely odd look. Change back, he said, and explain. The witch shifted back to her tall, thin, and pink-haired previous appearance. She blinked, and her eyes went from Harry's green to a light grey. You do live with Snape, don't you? She laughed. I'm your official tail, she winked, and suddenly she had a ridiculous horse tail swishing behind her for a moment. Harry had to literally bite his lip to keep from laughing. "She's a cop and she's following you," he reminded himself. "No thanks," Harry said coolly. "I don't need some cop following me around." Tonks glanced at Harry's friends behind him before she shrunk herself down to their height and lengthened her hair to a long golden blonde color. "How about another student then? You wouldn't want me to get in trouble at work, would you?" She looked at Harry with what Susan called puppy dog eyes. "I don't particularly care about your job," Harry said with a sneer. "Go away." Harry backed away a couple steps closer to his friends while keeping a careful eye on Tonks' currently empty hands. "Sorry, Harry," she smiled, "but you'll have to take it up with the minister." She clapped her hands together and bounced on the balls of her feet. "Where are we going first?" "Honeydukes," Ron said from behind Harry, "then Zonko's." "Theo and I were going to go check out the Owl Post service," Hermione said hesitantly. "We thought maybe you guys would want to meet up in a couple of hours at the Three Broomsticks." Harry turned just enough that he could see Hermione and Tonks both. "I thought we were all hanging out together," he said. Hermione blushed as Theo took her hand. "We just wanted a couple hours alone," Theo said with a pointed look at their joined hands. "You know, in private." "Oh, okay, but it's rather cold out for sex, isn't it?" Harry had seen a lot of street kids and prostitutes shagging in alleys before, but he didn't think Hermione would like that much. "We know Merlin," Theo sputtered. Added the rest of their friends laughed, and Hermione's face lit up bright red. Tonks nearly fell on the ground, she was laughing so hard. "We are not doing that," Hermione hissed. "Jesus, Harry, we just wanted to spend time together as a couple, like a date." "Oh," Harry blushed a bit himself now. "Well, I guess we'll see you in a couple hours. Be careful, yeah." "You be careful," Theo said before hustling Hermione down the pathway. "Great, where to?" Tonks said brightly, shifting her appearance to mimic Hermione. "We are wasting time," Susan whispered, stepping up to take Harry's hand. "She can come without knowing what we're doing." Harry tilted his head slightly in concession to Susan's point. "New plan," he said, watching Tonks out the corner of his eye. "You guys," he pointed at the other boys standing around them, "go do whatever. Susan, Tonks, and I are going to explore. Meet up in 2 hours at the Three Broomsticks, yeah." "Sounds good," Blaze said easily. "Come on, Longbottom, let's go introduce Weasley to Real Joke products." Draco stood with an uncertain look as the other three boys took off towards the town. He squared his shoulders and turned back to Harry, a determined glint in his eyes. "I'll go with you guys," he said. "Good man, Draco," Susan said. She shifted so she could link her arms with Harry and Draco both. "Where to?" Tonks asked again, rudely linking her arm with Draco and changing back to her blonde-haired previous appearance. "Shrieking Shack," Harry said immediately. "Ooh, so you are searching for Black," Tonks said brightly, stumbling slightly at the quick pace Harry and his friends were setting. "Kingsley said he thought you were, but I thought, no way a little kid would go looking for a man who wants to kill him." "Harry is not a little kid, Nymphadora," Susan said, glaring at the other witch. "And I believe he said we're going to look at a historical landmark, not that we're going to look for an escaped prisoner." "That's your job anyway, ain't it?" Harry added. "Testy," Tonks said with a wink at Draco. Draco loyally huffed and turned his head away from her. Tonks was unflappable during the walk to the shack. She kept up a steady stream of chatter about her own school days and aura training, which she just finished. "You'd be a great aura, observation skills like yours," she said to Harry. "How'd you even know where I was?" "Magic," Harry said dryly. Tonks just laughed again. Harry eyed the Shrieking Shack carefully as they approached the fencing around it. If Tonks hadn't been with them, his plan was to get his cloak and sneak in. "Think we can get in?" Susan murmured quietly. Apparently not quietly enough. "Oh, I wouldn't," Tonks said with a big smile. "I'd have to stop you if you broke into a forbidden area, plus, it's haunted anyway." "You could try and stop us," Susan said with her own polite smile. "And it's not fucking haunted," Harry snorted. "A giant wolf used to transform there every month, didn't they?" "A wolf," Tonks said, her eyes getting round with excitement. "Really?" "Merlin Tonks, aren't you a witch?" Draco muttered. "Careful, little cousin, I'd hate to have to prove that I'm a witch to you," she winked. "Let's just look around, yeah," Harry suggested. They were halfway around the side of the shack, when the large black dog Harry had taken to leaving stakes out, came slinking slowly out from underneath the house. "Hey, there's your dog," Draco said, his eyes lighting up at the sight. "Come here, boy." "His name is Grim," Harry said, "not boy." "You named a huge black dog Grim?" Tonks asked as the dog came running up to Harry. "You're a bit mad, aren't you, Harry?" "He is not," Susan said harshly. "Shut your mouth." Harry grinned at Susan before turning to Tonks. "My dog, my name," he said as he scratched the dog's ears. "Feel free to fight me over it." Tonks laughed again as she reached towards the dog, who very loyally growled at her. "Good boy," he murmured. "You can bite her if you want." The dog yipped and wagged its tail in a decidedly excited way that made Harry laugh. "Come on then, let's keep looking," he muttered to Susan. The four of them, plus the dog, walked around the edge of the shack twice before Harry had to admit defeat. Without getting a look inside, he had no real idea if Black was in there. "Where are we not looking for Sirius Black at next?" Tonks asked. Harry rolled his eyes at her as Grim edged closer to Harry. "Ignore her, boy, she's an imbecile," Harry said loud enough for Tonks to hear. "Are you sure you're Harry Potter?" Tonks asked, "because you sound an awful lot like Severus Snape." Grim growled at Tonks as she changed her hair and nose to mimic Snape. "One more word and we'll see how good of a witch you are," Susan said darkly. Tonks laughed as she shifted back to her student-like appearance. She held her hands up in a "I mean no harm" kind of manner. "If you guys want to go to the village, I'd be thrilled to give you a tour." Draco turned to Harry with a remarkably pleading look in his grey eyes. "Fine," Harry huffed, "let's go." Draco lit up and practically pulled Susan along with him as he all but ran towards the village. "Slow down," Tonks cried, "I'm clumsy." Harry laughed unkindly when she tripped over a stone not 30 seconds later. "Feel free to go away," Susan said with a sweet smile. "You guys aren't very nice," Tonks said with what Harry was sure was a fake pout. "I thought a fellow badger would be more welcoming." "You thought wrong, didn't you?" Susan hummed. "Are we fighting or are we going to Honeydukes before we have to meet up with everyone?" Draco said. Harry would have preferred to fight, but Draco pouted in the most ridiculous way. Tonks chattered about the different shops they passed alongside the sidewalk. Despite Harry's best efforts, he found himself listening along to her chatter. She was ridiculously cheerful, very clumsy for a cop, but she had a lot of interesting stories. When they got to Honeydukes, Harry made Grim wait outside with a firm command. "Do not run off or I won't buy you anything to eat," he said. "I'm not chasing you around town all day." Grim wagged his tail and obediently slunk off to the alleyway entrance, beside the shop as Harry and the others went inside. Harry felt his jaw drop before he caught himself once he stepped inside. "Brill," he breathed, taking in the sight. Everywhere he looked there were shelves and shelves of brightly coloured sweets. "Simon," Susan grabbed his hand and pulled him towards the shelves. "Let's find something wild for Lou." Harry ignored Tonks as he spent a very fun hour picking out a huge variety of treats with his friends. They filled a huge bag with all sorts of different stuff for Luna, including some sort of gummies that were shaped like different creatures. Harry grabbed a handful of pup treats for Grim, and even found some owl biscuits that he snagged for Sevi. He watched carefully as he saw Fred and George Weasley disappear into a trapdoor behind the counter when they thought nobody noticed. He wondered if they were robbing the place, and made a mental note to ask them about it next time he saw them. He couldn't do it now with the blonde cop he had stuck to him. They eventually left the shop with arms full of candies, and all thoughts of finding Black temporarily forgotten. "I can shrink those so you can carry them easier," Tonks offered. Susan, who Harry was beginning to suspect, did not like Tonks at all, snorted before holding her packages out to Harry. He smirked at Tonks before pointing his pinky at Susan's bag. "Shrink," he drawled. He was showing off a bit, as Susan's bag immediately shrunk down, but the look of surprise on Tonks' face was worth it. "How'd you do that?" she asked with a big smile as he repeated the process on Draco's bag. "Magic." He pulled out the pup treats for Grim before he shrunk, and pocketed his and Luna's bags. "Grim, come on buddy, want a treat?" Grim ran up to him and jumped up, putting his giant paws on Harry's chest. "Get down, stupid," Harry laughed as he nearly fell at the huge weight. "If you knock me down in front of all these people, I'm not giving you a treat." Grim jumped down immediately and looked up at Harry with his tongue wagging out of his mouth. You're ridiculous, Harry laughed as he tossed a few treats to him. You can have more if you come back to Hogwarts tomorrow, yeah. Come on, let's go get you food. Grim followed behind the four of them, occasionally dodging between their legs. After he knocked Tonks down and Harry laughed, it seemed like he purposefully kept trying to trip her. Which was fine by Harry. They got to the 3 broomsticks, and Grim whined at the door. You can't come in, Grim, Susan said with a fond pat to the dog's back. We'll get you some food though, okay? Grim wagged his tail again before trotting off to the side alley. They stepped inside, and Harry felt the warmth of the building chase away any lingering chill from the Dementor's presence in the village. Over here, Harry saw Blaze waving them down to a booth in the corner where the rest of their friends were already seated. You can go be a tail over there, Harry said, gesturing Tonks towards the bar top. Fine, Tonks sighed dramatically. I guess I'll just be an adult in a pub then. She winked one last time before shifting back to her normal appearance and sitting down at the bar across from them. Find anything? Neville asked softly. Not a thing, Harry said rather crossly. If Black's at the shack, then he's inside, and I couldn't shake Tonks to get in, could I? Neville gave him a sympathetic grimace before Ron jumped in with an offer to go get everyone a drink. He just wants to flirt with Rosmita, Theo laughed. Harry watched as Ron walked up to the bar, and his ears turned red almost immediately as the bartender, a curvy woman with a low-cut top, approached him. Boys are ridiculous, Susan said to Hermione, who nodded sagely. Harry didn't bother protesting, since Ron did look rather silly as he gawked and blushed at Rosmita, while she grabbed 8 butterbeers. Rosmita said Tonks bought 'em for us, Ron said with a soppy grin on his face as he handed out the drinks. Harry glared at the grinning aura and levitated a couple sickles to her. There was no chance he'd be indebted to a cop. What did you guys get up to? Draco asked the other kids. Immediately Ron and Blaze launched into a story about the joke shop they went to. Neville occasionally threw in a comment here or there. Harry glanced at the quiet couple across from him and saw that they were holding hands and whispering and giggling together. What do you guys get up to then? Harry asked them. Ooh, Hermione sat up and smiled happily at his question. We went to the post office. They have about 200 owls, all sitting on shelves, all color-coded depending on how fast you want your letter to get there. The post office is not a romantic date, Draco snorted, giving Theo a disbelieving look. Why didn't you guys go to Madame Pudderfoot's? Theo looked suddenly uncertain, but Hermione scowled at Draco. We had a wonderful time, she said haughtily. Much more fun than sitting in a stuffy tea shop. The rest of them started arguing over the best place to visit Hogsmeade for a date, while Harry looked around the pub instead. He was watching 2 goblins speaking rapid-fire gobbledygook when the chiming of the door opening drew his eyes to the new arrival. Professors McGonagall and Flitwick had just entered the pub with a flurry of snowflakes, shortly followed by Hagrid, who was deep in conversation with a portly man in a lime-green bowler hat and a pinstriped cloak, Cornelius Fudge, Minister of Magic. Be right back, Harry said to his friends as he jumped to his feet. He'd seen the signs all over the village announcing the presence of Dementors by order of the Ministry of Magic, and wanted to find out why. Harry, how are you, lad? Harry stretched the fingers in his left hand, as his right was enthusiastically shook by the minister. Hello, Minister Fudge, how are you? He said politely. Oh, none of that now, Fudge winked at him. I told you, call me Cornelius. Professor McGonagall gave Harry an exasperated sort of look when Fudge said that. Here, Harry, join us for a drink, won't you? Harry glanced back at his table of friends and shrugged. Sure, thank you, Cornelius. Harry sat on the corner chair at the table and ordered a water when everyone else ordered their drinks. What brings you to town, Minister? Rosmita asked when she brought them all drinks. Sirius Black, of course, the minister sighed before taking a deep drink. I heard all about your actions on Halloween, lad, he said with a wink towards Harry. Very brave of you, but you have to be careful. He wagged a finger in Harry's direction. Black is mad. Who knows what kind of dark magic he could have used on you. Harry very carefully did not make a face at Black's supposed madness, nor how apparently, since he's a bad person, he must be using dark magic. Harry was very interested to see McGonagall scowl minutely before taking a sip of her drink, though. It was confusing how Black even got in the castle, Harry said. I thought the Dementors would have been able to catch him. Isn't that what they're there for? He blinked innocently at Fudge. Flitwick winked at him from behind the minister's back. I know, Fudge sighed. The Dementors were not happy he was able to slip past them. I've just met some of them. They're in a fury against Dumbledore. He won't let them inside the castle grounds. I should think not, said Professor McGonagall sharply. How are we supposed to teach with those horrors floating around? Hear, hear, squeaked Professor Flitwick. All the same, demurred Fudge, they are here to protect you all from something much worse. We all know what Black's capable of. Do you know I still have trouble believing it, said Rosmeter thoughtfully. Of all the people to go over to the dark side, Sirius Black was the last I'd have thought. I mean, I remember him when he was a boy at Hogwarts. If you told me then what he was going to become, I'd have said you'd had too much mead. Suppose that's because he didn't get your parents killed, Harry said curtly, effectively shutting Rosmeter up. I'm sorry, dear, she said after an awkwardly silent moment. You know your father used to come in here all the time. Oh, he used to make me laugh. Him and Black both, they were ringleaders of their little gang, you know. She gave Harry a cheerful little smile. Harry would desperately have liked to have ignored her, but figured he needed to adopt the poor orphan Harry routine in front of McGonagall and Fudge. Really? He said, making his eyes wide. He named Black my godfather, you know. I figured they were probably best friends in school. You'd have thought Black and Potter were brothers, chimed in Professor Flitwick. Inseparable. I met him, growled Hagrid suddenly. I must have been the last to see him before he killed all them people. It was me what rescued little Harry here from Lily and James's house after they was killed. Harry gave him a sharp look, ignoring the looks of pity the other 4 adults were giving him. Why the hell was Hagrid the one to come get him from his parents' house? It's Dumbledore. You got him out the ruins, poor little thing, Hagrid continued with a sad look towards Harry. And Sirius Black turns up on that flying motorbike he used to ride. Never occurred to me what he was doing there. I didn't know he'd been Lily and James's secret keeper. Thought he'd heard the news you know whose attack and come to see what he could do. White and shackin' he was, and ye know what I did. I comforted the MURDI and traitor, Hagrid roared. Hagrid, please, said Professor McGonagall, keep your voice down. How was I to know he wasn't upset aboo Lily and James? It was you know who he cared aboo. And then he says, give Harry to me, Hagrid, I'm his godfather, I'll look after him, but I'd had me orders from Dumbledore. Harry wondered which would have been worse, living with the Dursleys or Black. Dursleys, he decided quickly. He added, kept me from my godfather, as another reason for why he'd one day kill Dumbledore. I told Black no, Dumbledore said Harry was to go to his aunt and uncle. Black argued, but in the end he gave in. Told me to take his motorbike to get Harry there. I won't need it anymore, he says. I should have known there was something fishy going on then. He loved that motorbike, what was he giving it to me for? Why wouldn't he need it anymore? Fact was, it was too easy to trace. Dumbledore knew he'd been the Potter's secret keeper. Black knew he was going to have to run for it that night, knew it was a matter of hours before the Ministry was after him. But what if I'd given Harry to him, eh? Hagrid said with a wave towards Harry. I bet he'd have pitched him off the bike halfway out to sea, his best friend's son. But when a wizard goes over to the dark, there's nothing and no one that matters to him anymore. A long silence followed Hagrid's story, as the adults all either glared at Hagrid, McGonagall, or gave Harry the most pitying looks, Rosmeter. I'm gonna go, Harry said, pushing his glass back and getting to his feet. It was nice to see you, Minister, he said with a nod to Fudge. He quickly left the pub before any of his friends, or Tonks, could catch up to him. He didn't know why Hagrid's story bothered him so much. He knew it already. Mr. Malfoy had told him about the Fidelius charm, about Black being the secret keeper, and how Black was so covertly on the Dark Lord's side that none of the other Death Eaters even knew he'd been one of them until the end. It just strung still. Everything could have been different. If Black hadn't betrayed his parents to Voldemort, if Black hadn't let Hagrid take him, if his parents had picked a different godfather. Everything could have been different for him. And Hagrid sat there and carried on about it in front of the whole pub like Harry's life was one big public story. Which maybe people thought it was, but that didn't mean Harry had to like it. Harry walked briskly back towards the castle, too unfamiliar with the village to stray too far off the path. He passed through the gates and caught his breath once he could see the castle again. Off. He looked behind him and saw that Grim had followed him. Damn it, I'm sorry buddy, I forgot to get you food. Grim wagged his tail slowly and padded up to Harry and licked his hand while he looked up at him with his big grey eyes. I'm fine, Harry said as Grim whined at him. I'm just, Harry struggled to find the right word. Mad, I guess, I'm just mad. Grim whined again and pulled on Harry's sleeve. Where we going, buddy? Harry grinned as Grim tried to yank him towards the tree line. You lazy thing, you just want to use me as a pillow again, don't you? Grim wagged his tail eagerly. Harry sat and leaned against the tree, and Grim immediately put his heavy head on Harry's lap. Hagrid's an idiot, Harry murmured. Telling the whole pub about Black betraying my parents like that. How would he like it if I told stories about him to everyone, huh? Grim whined some more, so Harry scratched his ears as he talked. You know Black was my godfather, yeah, and he just let Hagrid take off with me, which is only a little better than killing me there, I guess. Grim growled a little at that. Which do you think is worse, Grim, dying, or living with people who hated you for 7 years? Grim picked his head up and looked at Harry, before growling more viciously. Did your owners kick you out too? Is that why you're my dog now? Grim laid his head back down gingerly on Harry's lap, and Harry resumed scratching his ears. Do you want to help me find Black? I figure if I wait long enough he'll find me and try to kill me. Grim let out a distressed-sounding yip that made Harry smile. Black couldn't actually kill me, could he, buddy? Doesn't even have his fucking knife. Harry laughed and Grim panted in a way that Harry thought sounded like he was laughing too. Everyone says he's mad, he's a dark wizard, he's evil. But Sissa says he was tragically misunderstood. Harry sighed. Snape says I'm misunderstood too. Do you suppose that's just a nice way of saying crazy? Have you lost your god-damned mind? Snape doesn't get it, Harry murmured. He thinks everything's so easy, doesn't he, buddy? He says I should tell someone a secret, see if I can trust them. I think he's the mad one, Harry said softly. People trick you and betray you and don't give a damn about your secrets. I can tell you a secret though, can't I, buddy? Grim whined and thumped his tail on the ground a couple of times. Susan told me she loves me, she's my best friend, but I don't even know what that means, he confessed quietly, knowing Grim could never repeat his words. Hermione and Theo are in love, I guess, and I don't get it either. Do you think I'm broken or something? How do you know if you love someone? Harry looked up at the sky as he sorted through his own thoughts. I'd kill someone who tried to hurt my friends, but if they tried to hurt me I'd probably kill them too. So do I love them? That doesn't sound like love, does it? Grim licked one of Harry's hands, and Harry smiled softly down at him. Think I can tell Snape I told you a secret and he'd let it count? Grim panted with his tongue lolling out, making Harry laugh. Probably not, huh? Harry sighed again and sat quietly with Grim for a while, scratching his ears and watching as students started to return to the castle. I better go, buddy, Harry said as he stood up. Don't want Snape to come yelling again, do we? Grim bared his teeth in a growl at that, and Harry gave him a last pat to his head. Good talk, buddy. I'll bring you out some food after dinner, all right? Grim barked happily as Harry made his way back to the castle. He felt quite a bit calmer now that he told Grim some of his problems. Snape was the mad one, thinking he'd ever go talk to some mind healer. Why would he? They'd probably just shout out all his problems in public just like Hagrid did. At least Grim couldn't talk. The next week passed by quickly, as everyone began to get excited for the upcoming Quidditch match. If we beat Hufflepuff, then we're in the finals against Gryffindor, Draco explained for the 100th time over dinner the night before the game. If we lose, then we have to beat Ravenclaw, and then we're in the finals against Gryffindor. Everyone mostly tuned him out as they chatted about other things. Did you guys get your essay done for Sprout? Ron asked with a guilty look on his face. I'm stuck on mine. It's due Monday, Hermione cried. Mine's done, you can look it over if you want, Neville offered. Can I look it over too? Harry asked. You can copy mine for McGonagall if so. Deal, Neville said quickly. You guys want to go to the library before it closes? I can give you the book I used in case you want to use your own references. Good thinking, Harry said, getting to his feet. See you guys later, he called to their other friends. Ron, Neville, and himself were halfway to the library when Harry spotted Ron's twin brothers whispering in an alcove together. Hey, I'll catch up in a minute, he told them as he made his way over to Fred and George quickly. It's little Master Snake, one of the twins said. Oh, your dark snake lordiness, what can we do for you? The other said with a big smile. Were you guys robbing Honeydukes? He asked bluntly. What? The twins both looked at him, and were either incredibly good liars, or they truly had no idea what he was talking about. I saw you go in a trap door, he said. Oh, the twins laughed before glancing at each other, and doing their silent communication thing they do sometimes. No, one of them said, don't tell anyone, okay? Harry hummed non-committally. If they were going to trust him with a secret, without asking for a vow, that was their problem. It's a secret passageway, the other said quietly. We weren't strictly supposed to be there. On account of being banned for the weekend. They both laughed and Harry perked up at that. If there were secret passageways into Hogsmeade, then he could go back and look for Sirius Black at some point. How'd you find it? He asked as casually as he could. One of them pulled out a blank piece of parchment and winked at him. We have a map. Harry eyed the parchment and weighed his options. On the one hand, the twins could be pranking him. On the other hand, if they really had a map of Hogwarts with secret passageways, then Harry wanted it. I'll buy it off you, he offered. Name your price. No can do. Not even for your snakiness. Harry shrugged. He tried to be nice. Okay then, I'm cashing in my favor you owe me, he said to the one holding the map. No questions asked, I want that map. He held his hand out and tugged on his magic. The map flew right to his hands, and Harry smiled at the twins. Don't suppose you want to let me know how to work it, do you? The twins gaped at him before quickly whispering back and forth with each other. How much will you pay us if we tell you? One of them asked shrewdly. Harry shrugged and looked down at the parchment. He put his hand flat on it and thought he could feel a warm hum from it. Fairly confident now that this wasn't just a blank piece of parchment, he considered his choices. Nothing if I can figure it out myself, he eventually said. Show me the map, he thought as he tried to push his magic into the parchment through his hand. As though an invisible hand were writing upon it, words appeared on the smooth surface of the map. Mr. Mooney bids Potter Jr. a good evening, and mourns the fact he clearly did not inherit his mother's brains. What the fuck, Harry murmured, watching as the map continued to insult him in the oddest ways. Mr. Prongs agrees with Mr. Mooney, and would like to add it is not too late for Potter Jr. to request a resort. Who the fuck are Mooney and Prongs? Harry demanded of the twins before even more writing appeared. Mr. Wormtail wishes Potter Jr. a good day, and advises him to eat more vegetables if he ever wishes to be taller than a midget. Mr. Padfoot would like to add that it is a shame Potter Jr. is just as nearsighted as Potter Sr., without half the charm or looks. Mr. Prongs would like to remind Mr. Padfoot to watch himself. Is this a joke? Harry said, glaring at the twins once the map wiped itself clean. I swear to. No, Harry, no. I swear to you that wasn't us, one of the twins said with wide blue eyes while the other shook his head quickly. It's a real map, mate, we swear, the one further from Harry added. 10 galleons and show me how it works, Harry said, unwilling to give up the other favor the twins owe him for the map. 20, the one further from Harry countered with. 8 and I don't curse you. 10, you don't curse us, and you go to Hogsmeade with me next month, the one by Harry grinned. Harry looked at him curiously. Why would I go to Hogsmeade with you? We aren't even friends. The one further back started laughing hysterically until Harry glared darkly at him, then he just bit his lip to try and stifle his laughs. We could be, the one by Harry winked. I'm a terrific friend to have. 12 galleons, I don't curse you, and I don't go to Hogsmeade with you, Harry said instead. Deal, the one further from Harry grinned. Put your wand, or hand I guess, on the parchment and say, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. If you're winding me up I'm not paying you, Harry warned him before doing what he said. And at once, just like before, thin ink lines began to spread like a spider's web from the point that Harry's hand had touched. They joined each other, they crisscrossed, they fanned into every corner of the parchment, then words began to blossom across the top, great curly red words that proclaimed. Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot and Prongs, purveyors of aids to magical mischief makers, are proud to present the Marauder's Map. It really was a map showing every detail of the Hogwarts castle and grounds, but the truly remarkable thing were the tiny ink dots moving around it, each labelled with a name in minuscule writing. Astounded, Harry bent over it. A labelled dot in the top left corner showed that Professor Dumbledore was packing his study, the caretaker's cat, Mrs. Norris, was prowling the second floor, and Peeves the poltergeist was currently bouncing around the trophy room. And as Harry's eyes travelled up and down the familiar corridors, he noticed something else. There were at least half a dozen passages that led right off the map and off Hogwarts grounds. Brill, Harry breathed. Where'd you get it? Nicked it from Filch our first year, the twin by Harry grinned. We use it for all our pranks. If you don't clear it when you're done, then anyone can read it, the other twins said warningly. Just put your wand or hand on the map and say, Mischief managed. Harry tried it out to make sure it worked before reactivating the map and watching as the tiny dots moved across it. Harry pulled out his coin purse that was linked to his account and counted out 12 gold coins before turning his attention back to the map. Here, he murmured distractedly, mesmerized by the amount of information the map showed. Cheers, mate, the twin further from him said. Let me know if you change your mind about next month, the other said with another cheerful wink. Harry grimaced at the annoying way the twins talked as they wandered down the hall. He wasn't even sure now which one owed him a favor still. First time anyone's paid me to not go on a date with me, one of the twins grumbled as they walked away. Harry heard the other one laugh as he clapped his brother on the shoulder. Won't be the last time, Freddie. Harry shook his head in bemusement at their antics. When did he pay Fred to not go on a date? He looked down at the map and grinned when he saw that Ron and Neville were still in the library. Snape said he should trust his friends with a secret, and the map was officially a secret. Chapter 12, Slytherin vs. Hufflepuff. On the second Saturday of November, Severus watched his snakes chatter excitedly during breakfast. Their first game, Slytherin vs. Hufflepuff, was today, and there wasn't a student at his table that wasn't sporting green scarves and excited eyes. As civilized and restrained as the Slytherin students usually were, they always upped their energy levels on game days. When Potter and Draco entered the hall together, the Slytherin table stood and gave them a round of applause. Severus scoffed at the puffed chests and pleased smirks both boys displayed. As if sensing his thoughts, Potter looked up and winked in his direction. Severus reluctantly felt the edges of his lips curl up into a small smile. The brat was an arrogant show-off. Severus watched as Potter and Draco sat, and both began picking at their meals. Despite their arrogant entrance, he could tell they were needlessly worried. Before he made his way to the teacher's box in the stands, he stopped by the table and wished each of his players luck. Flint eagerly assured him they would be winning the Quidditch Cup again. The rest of the players didn't seem to be as confident as Flint, though they all had a stubborn look in their eyes and a determined set to their postures. Harry, Draco, good luck this morning, Severus said once he reached their end of the table. Thanks, Potter grinned up at him. Nice weather for it, huh? Severus chuckled at Potter's sarcasm. It was a terrible day for a Quidditch match. It was windy, raining, and had a high likelihood for lightning. If he were not the head of Slytherin House, there would be nothing that could convince him to go sit outside and watch a match for however long it takes. Try and catch the snitch quickly before we all freeze, will you? Potter shrugged. I'll do my best. Suppose I can do it faster that Diggory anyway. Potter and Draco both sent disdainful looks towards the Hufflepuff table, where the students in yellow were crowding around Cedric Diggory, the captain and seeker for their team and fifth-year Hufflepuff prefect. Of course you can, Bones assured Harry as she slipped a slice of ham on his plate. Severus was amused, yet unsurprised, to see that Bones, Lovegood, Granger and Longbottom were all sporting green scarves and hats. It was rare for Slytherin to have so many supporters from other houses during their games. Do try and stay on your broom this time, Severus told Potter, who grimaced at the reminder. If I break any bones, just make sure nobody but Snape heals them, Potter told his friends severely. Severus walked out to the stands with his own chest slightly puffed out. Potter trusted him, and him alone, to heal any injuries. While Severus hoped there were no injuries that would require healing today, he couldn't help but be flattered by the child's continued trust in him. As predicted, the weather was terrible for a Quidditch match. Such was the popularity of Quidditch that the whole school turned out to watch the match as usual. Severus watched as the students ran down the lawns toward the Quidditch field, heads bowed against the ferocious wind, umbrellas being whipped out of their hands as they went. Severus cast a few charms on himself to stay as warm and dry as was possible on a day such as this, and silently prayed that Potter would end the match quickly. The sooner he caught the snitch, the less pep-up potions Severus would have to restock this evening. Severus clapped alongside Pomona as their opposing teams entered the field. The wind was so strong that they staggered sideways as they walked out onto the field. Wager on the game, Pomona asked as Flint and Diggory shook hands. Severus thought back to Potter's manic energetic practice over the summer, for he was not entirely convinced the Muggle healer had been correct in his diagnosis. 10 galleons that Potter catches the snitch, he said. Pomona laughed, not that Slytherin wins, just that Potter catches the snitch. Severus hummed. He watched the foolish child break his arm 3 times in a row, while practicing Potter would catch the snitch. "That's fine, I have complete confidence in Mr. Diggory," Pomona said with a proud smile. "Deal," Severus murmured, his eyes sharp on his rising players. Potter immediately shot up high in the sky, his broom shaking slightly from the rough winds. Severus grit his teeth to see all 14 students soaked to the bone by the time 5 uneventful minutes had passed. He could tell that Potter and one of the chasers for Hufflepuff were both having additional difficulties due to their glasses. "Make them impenetrable, you ridiculous boy," Severus muttered under his breath as Potter swerved to avoid Pusey. Thankfully, once again as if Potter were reading his mind, Severus watched as Potter plucked his glasses off his face before replacing them and flying much steadier. "Harry's got quite the hang of magic, doesn't he?" Minerva chuckled beside him. Since Minerva once took points from the child for not using a wand in her class, Severus did not dignify her statement with a verbal response. He clapped as Draco scored the 5th goal of the game, putting Slytherin up by 50 points, when the first strike of lightning hit and Flint called for a timeout. Full of fresh determination after the timeout, Severus watched as his students urged their brooms through the turbulent air. Potter was staring in every direction for the snitch, avoiding a bludger ducking beneath Diggory, who was streaking in the opposite direction. There was another clap of thunder, followed immediately by forked lightning. This was getting more and more dangerous. Severus had his hands clenched tightly around his wand as he watched his ward and his godson both carefully. Potter may be a magical prodigy, but neither boy would survive being struck by literal lightning. Severus saw Potter freeze as another flash of lightning illuminated the stands opposite Severus. He squinted to make out Potter's facial expression, and saw that the child looked amused by whatever he saw on the stands across from him. "Turn, you fool, turn," Severus hissed, seeing Diggory suddenly zero in on a location between the 2 boys. "Come on, Potter," he murmured, his eyes straining as he kept them glued to his ward who had finally turned, and was now flying fiercely towards where Severus assumed the snitch was located. "Come on, come on." "Severus," Pomona gasped suddenly, clutching Severus' arm tightly. "Wah, son of a bitch, ALBUS, stop them." Severus had looked down at Pomona's grasp and saw that the field had filled with Dementors and Potter was falling. Impedimenta, he flicked his wand in Potter's direction, and his chest tightened once he realized the child was too far away for the spell to reach. "Expecto Patronum," Severus yelled with no effect, his eyes on his rapidly falling ward. "Expecto Patronum." "Nothing." Severus fled down the stairs, desperately trying to reach the field before Potter crashed into the crowd of at least 100 Dementors who were already rising towards him. Severus could hear the shouts of the other professors calling upon their patronesses, could feel Albus' fury behind him, and heard the terrified shrieks of the students as he ran. "You'll never make it. He'll die." A great silver phoenix flew past Severus and scattered the Dementors on the field. It was closely followed by Minerva's cat and Pomona's chipmunk. "Impedimenta," Severus cried, his wand pointed at Harry's falling body. He was close enough that the spell connected, but Harry was too close to the ground. Crash! Severus skidded to a halt where Potter landed not 20 feet away from him. "Potter, Potter, Harry, wake up, he muttered frantically as he flipped him onto his back. He listened and heard raspy breaths coming from Potter's mouth, and felt the tightness in his chest loosen an infinitesimal amount. "Alive!" "Hospital wing," Albus said from behind him, conjuring a stretcher for Potter. "Go, Severus." Severus gave him an absently thankful nod as he levitated the stretcher towards the castle as quickly as he could. He only idly recognized that it was Miss Bones, pale-faced and tear-streaked, that threw the entrance door open for him before she sprinted up the stairs to open the hospital wing doors as well. "Poppy," Severus yelled, all sense of decorum gone as the harsh lights of the wing highlighted how pale Potter was. "Severus, what bed one now?" Severus levitated Potter to the first bed and stepped back to allow Poppy to do her job. He kept his eyes on Potter and tightened his fists until he could feel his nails cutting into his palms. "What happened?" Poppy demanded as she began murmuring diagnostic spells. "Dementors," Severus said immediately, "at least 100 of them. They came on the field and Potter fainted. I was too far to slow him down in time. I wasn't able to slow his descent until he was a mere 20 feet from the ground. And Severus swallowed harshly. He hit the ground, Poppy," he whispered in a choked voice that he couldn't bother to mask. "Tell me what to do." Poppy spared him half a glance before returning her attention to Potter. "Stay back," she said, harshly but not unkindly. "You're no help to me right now. If I break any bones, just make sure nobody but Snape heals them." "If there are any breaks, I will fix them," he said hoarsely as he took half a step back. "It's important." Poppy nodded as she continued to work. Severus stood stock still as he watched until he felt a small and warm hand slip into his right hand. He glanced down and saw that Miss Bones was now clutching his hand as if a lifeline in a storm. Her eyes overflowed with tears silently as she kept them firmly fixed on Potter. "He'll be okay," Severus said softly. "He'll be fine." Bones ignored his empty platitudes as easily as he himself would have. Poppy glanced behind her and shook her head as she returned her focus to Potter. "Miss Bones, you'll need to wait in the—" "She stays," Severus said shortly. The two stood there in silence after that. Severus kept his eye on every spell Poppy used, acknowledging the injury needed for the spell to be used. Traumatic brain injury. Spinal cord repair. Abdominal repair. Concussion. Severus flicked his wand in his left hand and offered Poppy the blood replenisher he summoned from her store as soon as he recognized the spell for internal bleeding. "I think that's that aside from the breaks," she said as she spelled the thick red liquid directly into Potter's stomach. "Snape does the breaks," Bones whispered. "He said only Snape." "I know, I told her," Severus assured her. He flicked his wand again and summoned a calming draught. Bones sounded calm, but she was beginning to tremble, and Severus worried that between the weather, the presence of the Dementors, the emotional upheaval she went through, and the physical exertion of crying, that Bones would be in shock herself if he didn't nip it in the bud. It was a mark of how much trust Severus must have earned from the little badger that she accepted the lavender vial and drank it without a single pause. "Severus, whenever you're ready," Poppy said. Severus inhaled and exhaled slowly as he counted to 10 multiple times and cleared his mind. "What all is broken?" he asked with a final reassuring squeeze to Bones' hand before stepping forward. "Left femur, left wrist, bilateral collarbones and a skull fracture," Poppy said. 1, 2, 3. Severus counted to 10 slowly once more before he began healing the breaks. "Brachia memendo," he said with a gentle tap on Potter's leg. He continued the process before he took a deep breath and finished with the skull fracture. "I'm going to revive him now," Poppy said. "He might not immediately wake up though. That concussion was nasty." Severus nodded and conjured 2 chairs. "Sit, Bones," he said with a guiding hand on the young witch's shoulder. They sat on either side of Potter's bed as Poppy tapped his chest. "Renovate." "Call for me when he wakes," Poppy said with a final kind smile towards the two of them. Bones immediately grasped Potter's hand beside her and began whispering to him. "Wake up, Harry, you're at Hogwarts, you're okay now. Snape fixed it, wake up please." Severus did not grasp Potter's hand, sure the child would not appreciate it once he woke, and instead studied his ward as Miss Bones whispered to him. He watched as Potter's chest rose and fell in deep even counts. He watched as Potter's face began regaining color, and he watched as his lips started moving. "Stop," he murmured so softly it was almost indiscernible. "Please, stop." Harry, it's okay, wake up," Bones whispered directly in Potter's ear. "You're not there, you're here, at Hogwarts, with me, Susan and Snape." Potter's lashes fluttered as Bones continued to reassure him in soft whispers. Susan," he croaked, "where am I?" Severus snagged his glasses off the nightstand and slid them on his face, careful not to make contact with his skin. "You're in the hospital," Severus said gently. "You fell during your Quidditch match." "Snape," Potter tried to sit up as his eyes frantically flicked around the room. "You're quite safe," Severus said as he flicked his wand beneath the bed to summon another calming draught. "Here," he placed the vial in Potter's open hand. "Sit back and drink." Potter's hand shook terribly as he held the vial up before abruptly putting it on the nightstand. "I don't know how I got here," he said as his respiratory rate increased and he frantically looked around the room. "Harry," Bones climbed on the edge of the bed and put a hand on either side of Potter's face. "Hey, it's me." Potter was taking shallow and shaking breaths as he focused his eyes on Bones. "You fell off your broom. The Dementors were on the field and made you fall. Snape tried to slow you down, but you still hit the ground. He levitated you to the hospital wing. I've been here the whole time. Snape fixed the brakes and you're okay now. Match Susan's breathing, Harry, Severus said calmly. Inhale as she does. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it now just as she does. 2, 3. Excellent. Exhale for 2, 3. Very good. Again now. Severus talked Bones through the breathing, and Potter kept his eyes latched on hers as he copied it for 3 cycles. Harry, where are you? Severus asked softly. Potter attempted to flick his eyes around again, but Bones kept her hands firmly on his face. Where are you? She whispered. Hogwarts, Potter said in a hoarse voice. At Hogwarts. Very good, Severus said. Will you drink this calming draught? Bones grabbed the vial from Severus' hand and held it up to Potter's mouth. Drink, she said. To Severus' never-ending shock, he did. I'm his best friend. Harry trusts me the most. Miss Bones' confidence in Potter's trust in her was clearly not undeserved. Potter immediately slumped back in his pillows as the draught worked its way through his system. Draco okay? He asked Bones. He's fine, she reassured him, sliding off the bed and back into her chair. You were the only one hurt. Brill, Potter sighed. We lose. You lived, Severus said. I have no idea the results of the game. Be right back, Bones said before running to the hospital door. Severus craned his neck and saw that it looked as if there were nearly 20 students standing outside the doors, mostly Slytherins from what he could see, though Miss Lovegood's platinum hair was distinguishable as well. Severus could not hear what Bones asked, though he could make out half a dozen voices answering her as they overlapped one another. No visitors, Bones said loudly, before closing the door in the anxious students' faces. She came back with a tightening around her eyes and something held behind her back. Feeling okay? She asked. We lost, didn't we? Potter asked with a dejected slump to his shoulders. Diggory caught the snitch right as you fell, Bones said softly. They said he called for a rematch, but Hooch said it was a fair grab. Potter scoffed weakly but didn't dispute it. The bad news all at once, or save it for later, Bones said hesitantly. Severus turned his head to see what she had behind her back. It looked like a bag with something brown inside of it. He was puzzling it out as Potter said he wanted to know the rest of the news. Bones said it just as the mysterious contents of the bag clicked in Severus' mind. I'm sorry, your broom flew into the Whomping Willow, Bones said quietly, offering Potter the bag. It destroyed it, Harry. Potter gaped at the twigs that scattered across his bed as he upended the bag. But it was mine, he said softly. Draco gave it to me. We can buy a new one, Harry, Severus said quickly. We can order it over break, okay? Potter nodded, but Severus got the distinct impression he didn't hear what Severus said. He continued staring down at the broomstick as his eyes became misty. Susan, will you? Potter struggled to finish his thought. Thankfully, Miss Bones apparently was able to interpret what she believed he wanted. I'll just go check on everyone, okay? We'll come see you later tonight. I'll get Mavis to bake some tarts. Potter nodded and Bones gave Severus a solemn look as she quickly left them alone in the wing. It was mine, Potter said softly before he buried his face in his knees, and his shoulders began heaving with the force of the sobs he was attempting to withhold. It's all right, Severus murmured as he gently laid his hand on Potter's back. It's all right, Harry, we'll replace it. See, can't you get rid of them? Potter wailed as he turned his body towards Severus and put his face in the crook of Severus' shoulder. Severus didn't need a further explanation. He should have immediately known that the broom, while a devastating blow to the child who once owned nothing, was just the trigger to the delayed effects of over 100 Dementors tearing at Potter's emotions and memories. I don't know, Severus said helplessly as Potter cried in his shoulder. I'm sorry. Potter asked for nothing. Ever. And now he asks for the one thing that Severus has no control over. God damn you, Sirius Black, he cursed in his mind. If it were not for Black, then the Dementors would not be here tearing Potter to pieces. I hate them, Potter wailed pitifully. Every tea time I was so damn weak they bring up. I know, Severus said as softly as he could. He placed his hand on Potter's back and attempted to rub it in the soothing way that his own mother used to do for him as a child. They won't be here forever. You're doing so well, Harry. Potter clutched him tightly and fisted his hands in Severus' robes as he cried. Severus rubbed his back and stroked his hair and whispered comforting sentiments to him. Due to the storm-darkened sky, He truly had no idea how much time had passed as he sat there holding the weeping teen. At one point Poppy appeared, then quickly ducked back in her office once the scene in front of her registered. Miss Bones eventually opened the door slowly when Potter's cries were tapering down. She met Severus' eyes and gave him a sad smile before pulling the door closed as she left. If Severus strained his ears, he could just make out her telling the other children that Potter was asleep and they would return the next morning. Potter's cries finally turned into ineligible whimpers as his fists unclenched, and he sagged against Severus' chest. Severus gently laid him on the bed and smoothed his tear and sweat-soaked hair away from his forehead. "Sleep, child," he murmured as he rearranged his chair closer to Potter's bed. "We will figure this out tomorrow." Once Potter was released from the hospital wing the next afternoon, Severus kept a careful eye on him. He picked at his dinner and kept his chin propped up on one hand. Severus could see the other children chattering to him, and they all continuously flicked their eyes Severus' direction with worried looks as Potter refused to respond. "Is Harry all right?" Lupin asked quietly. "I heard he had a nasty fall during the match yesterday." "He is unwell," Severus said curtly, his eyes on Potter. "I am handling it. If you need help, you." "I don't." Severus caught Miss Lovegood's eyes and jerked his chin minutely towards the hall doors. He exited towards the teacher's entrance and met Lovegood by the main entrance. "Miss Lovegood, I need to meet with the headmaster. I will personally ensure that none of you are given detention if you could take your group to the Slytherin common room tonight and stay with Potter." "Of course, Professor," Lovegood said softly. "Harry's not well, he needs people who care about him with him." She suddenly lifted her eyes and met Severus square on. Her glazed silver eyes were sharp and focused as she stared into his. "You see the problem, but you can't find the answer," she said in a rougher tone than Severus was used to hearing from her. "You won't find the answer. Not alone. All three of you need help. One of you can't get results without the others. You see it, don't you?" Before Severus could respond, Lovegood blinked and offered him a soft smile as her eyes resumed their previously dreamy appearance. "I'll just let everyone know we're having a sleepover again," she hummed. "Good luck, Professor Snape." Severus blinked at the spot Lovegood had been before mentally shaking himself and heading towards Albus' office. As fond of Lovegood as he was, Severus could only handle one problem at a time, and protesting the presence of the Dementors took priority over her convoluted riddle. "Motherfucking goddamned son of a bitch," Severus snarled as he cleared the belongings on his desk off with one vicious swipe. He had appealed to Albus, who agreed immediately with Severus' position. "The Dementors are drawing the joy out of all our students," he'd said wearily, "but with Black on the loose and already making an appearance here, parents believe their children are safer with their presence. This was set up by the ministry, my boy. I'm afraid that Cornelius is the only one with the power to reverse the decision." Severus thanked Potter and Lucius for their never-ending political ambitions, as he remembered that he was on a first-name basis with the minister. "They nearly killed Harry," he told Fudge and his flu. "There has to be a better way to protect the students." The minister had never looked so weak and pathetic as he did, as he fidgeted with his bowler hat and hemmed and hawed. "Parents will pull their students from Hogwarts if we yank the Dementors. I can't tell you how sorry I am about Harry getting hurt. Tell the lad that I said that, but it's better than Black getting his hands on him, isn't it?" At this rate, Severus didn't know which was a worse scenario. He was beginning to lean towards Black as the lesser of the two evils. Potter couldn't fight the draining effects of the Dementors, and Severus has complete faith that the child could kill Black with nothing more than his hands. Severus watched for weeks as Potter drug himself to classes. He watched as Potter sat listlessly and silent at the Slytherin table during meals. He saw Draco taking over potions during class as Potter's hands trembled so hard Severus was worried he was going to cut himself chopping ingredients. Severus sent Mavis with dreamless sleep and snacks to the Slytherin dorms in the evenings. "Master Potter is sleeping," Mavis cried shrilly, "but Master says he is still tired." Severus fielded hesitant complaints about impropriety by Miss Owens. "Sir, I don't want to speak badly of Potter, but I think he's got female students from other houses sleeping in his dorm." Severus informed Miss Bones and Lovegood to either be more diligent or utilize Potter's invisibility cloak. He listened to concerned remarks from his colleagues. "Is Harry sleeping?" Minerva asked during lunch one afternoon. "He looks terrible," she said bluntly. "He is ill," Severus said, and the damned Dementors are making it worse. Which was quite true. Severus set Lucius on digging up any and all research regarding the short and long-term effects of Dementors on a person's mind, and compared it to the Muggle research on psychology he had. Dementors fed off of human happiness like emotional leeches. They left only feelings of depression and despair in their hosts. Hosts with minimal trauma were largely unaffected by the aura the Dementors exuded that drove these feelings of depression. People such as Potter, though, who had pre-existing trauma and depression, were affected much harder as those chronic feelings were brought to the forefront and exacerbated. Severus considered pulling Potter from Hogwarts altogether. The Contessa, who wrote weekly inquiring on Blaise and Potter's well-being, would be more than happy to take Potter to France with her. But Severus worried as Potter continued his listless behavior that sending him away from his friends, his support, and out of Severus' watchful eye would push the child into something drastic. He tried multiple times to sit Potter down to speak with him, but each time he was fed a new excuse. "I don't feel good. Classes are tiring me out. The castle is cold. I'm just tired." All Severus could do for weeks was helplessly watch as Potter fought through the haze that seemed to follow him like a dark cloud. Through it all, Severus had a terrible and consistent thought niggling in the back of his mind. He was the single most incompetent guardian in the world. The mind healer did not misdiagnose Potter. Severus just naively wrote it off during Potter's period of stability. And now it was back and creating turmoil in his ward in a way that Severus truly could not have foreseen. If there was a worse guardian alive, Severus had never known them. Chapter 13, Christmas Break. "Mate, you look terrible." Harry shrugged one shoulder. "Feel terrible," he admitted. "I'm sick." Harry was staring into the fire in the Slytherin common room and missed the glances that Ron, Theo, Hermione and Luna exchanged. The rest of their friends had returned home for the holiday break. Susan refused to leave. She skipped the train ride altogether. Her aunt flew to Hogwarts and made her go home only after promising that she could return early on Boxing Day instead of the end of the first week of January with the rest of the students. "Maybe we should do something today," Hermione suggested. Harry ignored her. He didn't want to do anything. Harry was tired. Tired of everything. He was cold. Tired. Worthless. Pathetic. Weak. He just wanted to stay by the fire and let his thoughts tear him apart. He deserved it. "Wanna play chess?" Theo offered. No, Harry pulled the blanket around himself tighter and felt Luna as she readjusted her head on his shoulder. "Draco left his broom here so we could go flying," Ron said. "I bet Snape could do that thing he did at your place where it would be warm on the field. Wanna go?" Harry thought about falling from his broom, the voices screaming and crying in his head, the icy plunge towards the Dementors as everything went blissfully black. The horrible feeling when he had to wake back up. "No." "Well, what do you want to do today, Harry?" Hermione asked softly. Harry looked up at her tone and saw that Ron, Theo, and Hermione were all staring at him with these horrible, pitiful looks. They know you're pathetic, they know you're weak." "I'm going for a walk," Harry said abruptly. He got to his feet and summoned his cloak. "Leave me alone." "You don't want us to come with you?" Hermione called as Harry forced himself to walk quickly towards the portrait hole. "No," he said shortly, slamming the door behind him. He threw his cloak over his head and walked down towards the grounds. He knew his friends were worried about him. But that was the problem. He didn't want them to worry about him. If they were worried, it meant they thought there was a problem, which meant they knew exactly what kind of person he was, and they wouldn't want to be around him then. People only liked him when he was strong, powerful, confident. Nobody liked a pathetic, sniveling disappointment. Except for Grim. Harry sped up the closer he got to the edge of the forest. Grim didn't care if Harry came out and screamed or cried or just sat and zoned out, separating himself from any emotion at all. Grim just put his big head on Harry's lap and barked, sniffed and panted as Harry let everything out. And when Harry was lost in his own thoughts, Grim poked at him with his nose when it was nearly dark. "Grim, see me a buddy," Harry called softly as he took his cloak off. "I got you some food." Grim poked his nose out from behind a tree before happily running up to Harry. "Here you go," Harry pulled the meats and treats out of his bag that Mavis had charmed to keep food fresh, so he didn't have to go to the kitchen every day to get food for Grim. Grim let out a happy woof and dug into the food. "Wish I could eat like that," Harry said as he watched Grim dance around happily while he ate. "Everything just tastes the same lately, don't it, buddy?" Grim whined and pushed a chicken leg towards Harry. He gave him as much of a grin as he could muster up at the attempt. "No thanks, Grim. I gotta eat at least a couple bites at dinner or Snape'll be shoving bloody nutrition potions down my throat." Grim yipped and lolled his tongue out in the way he does when he wants Harry to laugh. Harry tried to give him a consolation smile, but judging from Grim's whine, it wasn't a very good one. Sorry buddy, I'm tired," he said softly as he sank down to sit cross-legged on the frozen ground. Grim whined again and cocked his head at Harry. It was times like this that Harry almost felt like he was having a real conversation with him. It was actually the perfect kind of conversation. Harry could say anything, and Grim would never be able to repeat it. "I haven't been sleeping good," he admitted in a hushed voice. "I can't stop all these thoughts, you know." Grim bobbed his head in a way that resembled a nod. "And they wake me up at night. My shields don't work. And I'm worried if I push too hard on the shields I'll lose my magic again. Then I'll just be worthless, yeah." Grim let out a low whine and shook his head. "You don't get it, buddy, my magic. It's all I have," Harry said quietly. "When my aunt and uncle shoved me in that cupboard and I was sore and scared and weak, I still had my magic. I was special. I was strong. It didn't matter that they called me a freak. I knew being a freak was better than not being special." Grim howled in the way he did sometimes when Harry said something he imagined the dog didn't like. Sometimes talking to Grim was so much like talking to an actual person that Harry could focus on his grey eyes and pretend he wasn't pathetically spilling his life story to a dog. Grim didn't care though. Grim just let him talk until he didn't feel everything bubbling up anymore. Then Harry scratched his ears, Grim tried to lick his face, and Harry came back the next afternoon ready to share more with the reliable dog. Harry also took to wandering around Hogwarts beneath his cloak at night, feeling like the ghost he often wished he was. He was so damned tired. But he couldn't sleep. So he slipped out of his bed, carefully making sure he didn't wake Luna, who had been sleeping in his bed, usually curled up like a cat, ever since the Quidditch match. Luna was a good person. Harry's woken up more than once in the last few weeks, screaming, soaked in sweat, panting, and on a few horrible occasions, covered in tears. Luna never said anything. She held Harry's hand and dried his face, then stroked his hair until he calmed down. She didn't bring it up the next morning, or treat Harry like the worthless dirt he was. She just stroked his hair and let him calm down as he matched her breath sounds. Harry tried clearing his mind before he went to sleep. He took the dreamless sleep potions Mavis brought him. He timed his breathing. But the intrusive thoughts plagued him night after night. As much as Harry didn't understand why Luna insisted on sleeping in his bed, he hoped she didn't leave. It was easy to trick himself into thinking he wasn't alone when Luna was beside him. She deserves better, they all do. He knew that, but they were his, and he wanted to keep them all to himself. "You got attached, you knew better. Never get attached. What happened to you?" He didn't know how he became this person he didn't recognize when he looked in the mirror. He stopped focusing on just surviving, and had tricked himself into thinking he could plan for a future. He let himself get weak. And worthless. Pathetic. Stupid, he muttered as he felt anger rising up in him at himself. "You're so fucking stupid." He emphasized each word with a slam of his fist to the stone wall. He pulled his arm back underneath his cloak, and realized with a detached type of understanding that his knuckles were swollen and bleeding. It made him feel a little more like a real person. More like who he really was anyway. Broken and bleeding. Worthless, pathetic, disgusting monster. Harry slammed his fist into the wall until he felt a sharp flood of relief as at least one of his fingers broke. He looked at his hand and smiled for the first time in weeks. Now his hand matched his mind. "Harry. Fuck." Harry spun around and put his back to the wall and reached for his knife. He hissed through his teeth as his broke fingers screamed at the strain he put on them as he closed them around the knife. The pain made his mind feel more sharp, so he squeezed the knife harder. "Harry, I know it's you." It was Lupin. He had his wand lit and held high as he looked around the area where Harry was invisibly hidden. "Come on now, you aren't safe out here in the middle of the night like this, Harry." He really hadn't meant to. He'd meant to slip away silently to a different corridor, but he scoffed, and Lupin's wand was suddenly aimed right in his face. "It isn't safe wandering the halls at night," Lupin said. "It's going to be less safe if you don't get your wand out of my face," Harry spat, feeling energized by the screams coming from his hand. "I apologize, Harry, though I can't really tell it's in your face if you're invisible," Lupin said lightly as he lowered his wand. "Time to come out now, please." Harry briefly considered saying no, thought about picking a fist fight with the werewolf. Without magic, Harry would be an easy target. He'd have his wand, but Lupin would have brute strength. Lupin could crush Harry's skull with only his fists. He wondered if Snape would kill Lupin if he did it, even if Harry provoked him. He thought he might. Harry would have done it. It would have been easy. Just throw one punch and hope it triggers Lupin's animal instincts. But if Lupin controlled himself, then he didn't really want to make getting expelled an annual tradition. Didn't want to make losing his friends an annual tradition. Didn't want his decision to be gone to be Dumbledore instead of his own. "Fine," he huffed, pulling his head out from under the cloak. "Happy?" "Not in the slightest," Lupin said with a smile that clashed against his words. "But I am pleased to see your face." The portraits were worried there was a new foul-mouthed ghoul haunting the corridors at night. "And you thought you'd go roaming around to find it," Harry said with a "you call this an essay," Snape's sneer. "I don't sleep much anyway," Lupin admitted easily. "Come along, let's go discuss your punishment in a more private setting." Harry squeezed the knife in his pocket hard enough that he imagined he could feel the broken bones separating further. No, he would be happy with a fight. If Lupin threw a punch right now, Harry would never tell a soul. Lupin could beat him unconscious and Harry might send him a thank you card for it, but if Lupin got him alone, there were a lot worse things he could do, and Harry couldn't always count on his magic to protect himself when he felt this way. On edge, on a sharp edge that cut him every time he breathed too deeply. Lupin glanced down at Harry curiously before his face inexplicably turned bright red. "Merlin," he muttered. Lupin cleared his throat and looked up at the ceiling. "I would like to speak with you, away from nosy portraits." He raised his brows pointedly at a nearby portrait. "How can I do that without making you worry about being alone with me?" "Vow it," Harry said immediately. Snape wouldn't care if Harry bound Lupin. Snape didn't trust him either. "Vow on your life that you aren't going to." Harry struggled to find the right word. He wanted Lupin to hit him, wanted a fight so bad he could feel it simmering under his skin, desperately trying to escape. But he didn't want to leave Lupin any loopholes. Lupin took the option right out of Harry's hands. "I, Remus John Lupin, swear on my life that I only wish to speak with you, Harry James Potter, and will not touch you in any way without your permission." Harry nodded curtly as he saw the golden strands sinking into Lupin's wrist. There goes his opportunity for a fight. He felt himself sinking back in to his detached feeling of exhaustion. "Let's go," he mumbled, following alongside Lupin as he made towards his office. Lupin let them walk in silence until he reached his office door. He stepped inside first, and then held the door open for Harry, which made it much easier for Harry to edge through the doorway out of his reach. Harry hovered near the chair in front of Lupin's desk, unsure what he was supposed to do. "Have a seat," Lupin offered as he took his own seat. "Sorry my desk is such a mess." Harry glanced around the desk and saw that it was rather messy. There was a steaming pot of something on one side, along with mugs, parchments, quills, ink pots, books, and wrappers all over the place. Snape's desk never looked like this. "Kay," Harry said hesitantly as he sat on the edge of his seat. "Before we talk about why it's dangerous to roam the castle in the middle of the night," Lupin gave him a crooked grin. "Are you hurt?" "What?" Harry was caught by surprise. "No, why would I be?" Lupin gave him a disbelieving look. "I'm pretty sure that was your fist hitting the castle walls, wasn't it? Werewolf ears are good for some things, you know." He said that last part in a conspiratorial sort of tone that Harry scowled at. He held his hand up and flexed it, hissing with satisfaction at the clarity that the pain gave him. "It's fine," he said, tucking his hand into his robe pocket. "It's not fine," Lupin disagreed with a small frown. "It's bleeding, Harry." "Can you smell that with your wolf senses?" Harry said rudely. "Drop it, please, drop it." "I can," Lupin said, unflappable. "I can heal it if you don't want to go to Madame Pomfrey, or we could go ask Severus. I'm sure he wouldn't mind waking up to do it real quick." No, Harry said quickly. He pulled his hand out and focused as intently as he could on healing it, and blinked as the bones shifted back together and the split skin disappeared. It's fine. You're incredibly advanced with your magic, Lupin said in awe. Did you use a spell to heal that just now? Nope, just thought about it, Harry said. Amazing, Lupin said. I know. Lupin chuckled and poured 2 mugs of whatever it was that was in the steaming pot on his desk. Here, have a drink. Lupin slid a mug across the desk to Harry. Lupin wasn't his friend. He was someone Harry could trust. He didn't even like Lupin, but at this rate, Harry hoped the mug was poison. Cheers, Harry mumbled as he took a deep drink. It didn't taste like poison. It tasted like hot chocolate. Harry could feel it coursing through his body and warming his fingertips as he sipped it. He was still cold as he finished the cup off, but it was a more tolerable coldness. Maury, Lupin offered with a smile. Harry just shrugged. He did want more, but he wasn't going to ask Lupin for a single thing. Lupin grabbed a steaming pot off the side of his desk and refilled Harry's mug anyway. You've been sick, Lupin said as he leaned back in his seat and watched Harry. Yep, Harry replied, even though Lupin hadn't said it like a question. Lupin cleared his throat lightly. You know I get sick quite a bit like you are as well. Harry gave him an incredulous look as he took another drink. You're a werewolf, he said flatly. I think that's different. Lupin chuckled. No, I mean yes, I'm a werewolf, but I get sick other times as well. Congrats, Harry mumbled. He didn't really care about Lupin's immune system. The Dementors make it worse, don't they? Harry glanced up at that and tilted his head as he considered Lupin. How do you know that? He asked. Lupin gave him another soft little smile. I told you I get sick quite a bit like how you are now. Yeah, Harry said. Yes, Lupin confirmed. I get cold and tired and I stop caring about anything going on. My body aches and I feel miserable. Exactly, Harry said, shifting forward. How do you heal it? You don't, Lupin said sadly. It helps to talk, but it isn't a physical illness and can't be healed like other ones can. Harry slumped back down in his seat and did his best to scowl at Lupin. Just because you're crazy doesn't mean I am, he said. Crazy? Lupin gave him a surprised look. It isn't a madness, Harry, it's depression. Which is a mind sickness, right? Harry said, thinking back on Snape's many speeches about it. You sound mad. Have you lost your goddamned mind? Harry, you're sick. It's called manic depressive illness and you need help. It is, but that doesn't make a person crazy, Lupin said slowly. It's a sickness just like a cold or the flu. Except it can't be fixed, yeah. It can be minimized, Lupin said. It doesn't have to always be so crushing. It was crushing. Harry couldn't have put it in words before now, but he was being crushed. Crushed by the cold. Crushed by the uncaring. Crushed by his thoughts. By talking, Harry scoffed. No offense, Professor, but I don't think I'd talk to you, would I? Of course you wouldn't, Lupin chuckled, apparently unoffended, but perhaps your friends, or Professor Snape, someone you trust. Harry considered it for the briefest of moments. He could go to Snape right now and tell him about all the thoughts he's having. Snape wouldn't laugh at him, he never did. He'd probably even help Harry feel better. But then he'd know. He'd know how pathetic Harry is, how weak, how worthless. He wouldn't want Harry around anymore. He'd find a way to get rid of him. Everyone does. No, Harry said quietly, I can't. I thought you and Severus had no secrets, Lupin said gently. I doubt there's anything you can say to him that he wouldn't want to hear. Harry shrugged and slumped down in his seat. You know, if you ever wanted to talk with me, I would keep what you said in confidence, Lupin said slowly. Harry gave him an incredulous look. Lupin literally told Snape about his boggart just moments after seeing it. I know I let you down before, Lupin said with a sad sort of frown, but I think you and I have quite a lot in common. Am I being punished, sir, or can I go to bed? Harry said. You're not being punished, Lupin said. Brill. Harry made his way to his feet. Lupin wasn't someone who he could talk to about anything. He didn't have anything in common with Lupin. Harry was reaching for the doorknob when Lupin caught his attention. I'm a monster, Lupin blurted out. Harry turned around and raised his brows at him. Once a month, every month for the rest of my life, I turn into an actual horrifying, terrible monster, Lupin said. I don't get close to people anymore because what's the point? They'll find out what I am and they'll be disgusted and they'll regret ever meeting me. You're worried Severus would be disgusted at your thoughts, that he'd think you're a monster. I don't think he would, Harry. Harry wasn't sure how Lupin had guessed so accurately at a hidden part of his thoughts, but he didn't like it. Lupin didn't get to know anything private about him. Never again. You think being a werewolf makes you a monster? Harry asked. Wouldn't you? Lupin said. His eyes had a desperate sort of sadness in them that Harry thought was pathetic. You're the pathetic one, his mind reminded him. Pathetic and weak. Harry desperately tried to ignore the memories his mind was pulling up, the ones he heard when the Dementors got too close. He wished he had just put a glamour on his hand instead of healing it. The pain would be an excellent distraction. You didn't choose to be a werewolf, did you? Harry said after refocusing back on the conversation. Get away from Lupin. Then you can drown in the thoughts. The wolf doesn't make you a monster. All the other stuff you did or didn't do that makes you a monster, Harry said, his voice flat and dull and matter-of-fact. Just like the things I did make me one. You aren't a monster, Harry, Lupin said softly, his eyes looking even sadder now. Sentimental fool, a little voice that sounded like Snape sneered in his head. Harry shook his head at Lupin's open vulnerability. Vulnerability was a weakness. You can't show it to other people. Kay, he said, opening the door to leave. Harry stepped quickly out of Lupin's office before the man could try some sort of weird bonding type thing again. He pulled his cloak back on and resumed his previous wanderings. Lupin didn't know him, didn't know what it was like in Harry's mind. Even if he had guessed quite a bit dead on. I don't get close to people anymore because what's the point? They'll find out what I am and they'll be disgusted, and they'll regret ever meeting me. You're worried Severus would be disgusted at your thoughts, that he'd think you're a monster. Harry didn't let his guard down around most people. Snape, Susan and Luna were really the only exceptions. They were the only ones who proved they'd liked him for more than just his power. I am proud of you. I love you, Harry. You're not worthless either. But if they really knew him, knew what it was like inside his head, they'd be disgusted. They'd know how broken and worthless he really is, and they'd leave him. And he'd be alone again. Despite Lupin's warnings not to wander the corridors alone at night, Harry continued to wander. Sometimes he just walked, lost in his own thoughts. Sometimes he found an empty classroom and put up privacy wards before punching the wall until his knuckles split and his bones were broke. Sometimes he thought about what he would do if he saw Sirius Black at night. He considered just letting Black kill him, then the decision wouldn't be his and he could be done. But he knew, even as detached as he felt from everything right now, when he went out he'd go out on his own terms. If Black had the misfortune of finding him during his strolls in the dark castle, then Harry would kill him. And then he'd decide what to do with himself. Harry woke up early one morning to an incessant poking in his side, only hours after slipping back in his bed. Good morning, Luna said with a bright smile, her hair mussed from where she must have just woken up. Merry Christmas, Harry. Merry Christmas, Lou, Harry mumbled, yanking the quilt back over his head. I'm sleeping. No, you're opening presents, Luna said, pulling the quilt off him. Please, I got you something. Harry opened his eyes and saw that Luna was giving him a shy smile. Lou, I'm tired, he said quietly, trying to not wake up Ron, Theo, or Hermione, who had been sleeping in Draco's empty bed since he left. You're going to feel tired until you find a reason not to, Luna said, making no sense at all. We can open gifts, then you need a shower, and then we can go get snacks and sit in the common room. Harry felt himself blush faintly at the reminder that he needed a shower. He knew he needed one, but every time he thought about the effort it would take, he changed his mind. You can sleep in Blaze's bed, or your own, he mumbled. You don't have to sleep in mine every night. Of course I do, Luna said airily. Your bed is the warmest. Harry shook his head at her odd answer. His bed was the coldest. He woke up every morning feeling as if he'd never be warm again. Here, Luna thrust a large lumpy package wrapped in sparkling golden paper in his hands. Open this one first. Harry sighed and summoned Luna's gift out from his trunk. The quicker he did this, the quicker she might let him lay back down. Here, he handed her his. He carefully unwrapped the package and pulled out the softest and most colorful blanket he'd ever seen before in his life. Merlin Lou, he breathed. Did you make this? The blanket was made up of about 50 different colors of yarn and was big enough that he could probably cover his bed and the bed beside him with it. I did, she grinned at him before opening hers. Harry, it's beautiful, Luna sighed, pulling the necklace out of the box it came in. She held it up and admired the golden chain with the golden moon attached to it. Moons are very lucky, you know. Thank you. She smiled a huge smile at him before holding it out. Will you help me? Harry carefully grabbed the delicate chain and worked to clasp it behind her neck. Done, he said once he finally got the tiny thing clasped. Open this next, Luna said, handing him another package from a pile he hadn't noticed at the foot of his bed. Fine, Harry pushed his glasses up and rubbed wearily at his eyes. He snagged the giant homemade blanket Luna made and wrapped it around his shoulders tightly. He thought she must have used magic to make it, because it felt warmer than other blankets usually did. He didn't deserve her to spend her time and magic on a gift for him. Harry was opening a box of silver, throwing stars from Mr. Malfoy and Cissa, when the other kids in the room started waking up. Oi, Ron said with a big smile, Merry Christmas. Theo, Hermione and Luna returned his sentiment, while Harry struggled to give him a half-hearted smile in his direction. Everyone began opening their presents. Ron, Theo and Hermione were chatting away happily, while Harry opened his wearily, as Luna handed them to him between opening her own gifts. Ooh, Harry, this is gorgeous. Harry glanced up at the sound of his name, and saw Hermione was holding up the golden necklace with the little book charm on it that he had gotten her. Thank you, she beamed at him, her brown eyes warm and happy. Welcome, Myoni, he said quietly. You bought my girlfriend a necklace? Theo asked, his voice choked. Harry looked up again and saw that Theo was giving him an odd sort of look, and Hermione was now glaring at Theo with obvious irritation. Harry flexed his right hand and felt his shoulders release a small amount of tension as he felt the ache in his swollen and split knuckles under their glamour. Yeah, Harry glanced at Ron, who frowned and shrugged. I got Luna and Susan each one too. Oh, you did? Theo's cheeks turned pink. Sorry, he mumbled. Idiot, Hermione hissed at Theo. Harry had no idea why Theo cared what Harry bought Hermione, or why he was apologizing, so he just ignored it. He was too tired to try and puzzle it out. Last one, then we can go down in the common room and eat, Luna said softly, handing him a long, thin package. What's that? Ron asked, peeking over at Harry's bed now that his was covered in gifts and discarded wrapping paper. Dunno, Harry said. Harry ripped the parcel open and gaped as a magnificent, gleaming broomstick rolled out onto his bedspread. Ron jumped off his bed for a closer look. I don't believe it, Ron said in a voice of awe. It was a firebolt, identical to the dream broom Harry had gone to see every day in Diagon Alley. Its handle glittered as he picked it up. He could feel it vibrating and let go. It hung in midair, unsupported. His eyes moved from the golden registration number at the top of the handle, right down to the perfectly smooth, streamlined birch twigs that made up the tail. Who bought you that? Ron asked, drawing the attention of Hermione and Theo. There's no card, Luna said as she dug through the paper. Harry suddenly had a memory of Snape, promising him a firebolt over the summer. There's a new broom that recently was released to the market, a firebolt. I would purchase it for you if you would go to one appointment. It was Snape, he said flatly, grabbing the broom and getting to his feet. Where you going? Theo asked at Harry's abrupt movements. I'm giving it back, he said. What? Why would you do that? Ron yelped. Doesn't matter, Harry muttered. See you guys later. Harry stormed into Snape's office without knocking and slammed the broomstick on his desk. I'm not going to a mind healer, he said flatly. Merry Christmas to you as well, Snape said. You can keep this, Harry said with one last look of longing at the broom. Snape looked down at the broomstick as well, then up at Harry, with both of his dark brows raised nearly to his hairline. Is that a firebolt? He said. Harry just stared silently at him. Snape knew what it was. Harry, I did not purchase this for you. Was there no tag? Snape said, gently lifting the broom and looking it over. You didn't buy it to try and trick me? Harry asked, his anger melting away just as quickly as it had appeared. I would never try and trick you, Snape said, still looking over the broom. I would be incredibly pleased and proud if you sought out the advice of a mind healer, as many others who suffer from manic depressive illness have before you. but I cannot and will not force you to do so. Oh, Harry slumped down in the seat in front of Snape's desk. Perhaps this was an outrageously generous gift from one of the Malfoy, Snape suggested. No, Harry said, having no interest in the mystery. They sent me weapons. Of course they did, Snape muttered darkly while Harry studied his own hands. I'm gonna go back to my room then, sorry, Harry said quietly as he got to his feet and reached out for the broom. Wait, Harry, Snape put his hand on the broom to stop Harry from taking it. Stay, please, I'd like to talk to you. Harry sat back down and rubbed his right knuckles over the edge of the armrest. The hard wooden surface scraped at his knuckles and made the fog in his brain ease back a little. It was a movement that didn't go unnoticed by Snape. Do you have a glamour on more than just your ear rings? He said, zeroing his dark eyes on Harry's hand. Harry tucked both hands beneath his legs on the chair, effectively hiding it from Snape's creepy X-ray gaze. No, he lied. What did you want to talk about? Snape stared at him in silence as Harry focused on the clock on the wall behind him. Firstly, I would like to express my concern that you are concealing something from me on your hand, he said slowly. Noted, Harry said, squeezing his hidden hand tightly. Snape sighed and Harry judged it safe to look at him again. I would also like to warn you against using this broom until we either find out who sent you such an overly generous gift, or I check it for any curses. Harry nodded absently. Okay. Would you like to know why? Snape asked, his face indiscernible. Not really, can I go, sir? I'm worried about you. Harry flinched at Snape's soft voice. Is that a cause for concern? Snape asked in the same tone. That I am worried about you, that I care for your health and happiness. Quit, Harry said. Snape leaned forward with a curious look on his face. I care about you, Harry. You are incredibly important to me. I care about you. Shut you p, Harry screamed as he jumped to his feet. You don't even know me, you don't care about me, so just shut, you p. Don't I? Snape said calmly, still seated at his desk. What do you believe I don't know about you, Harry? Anything, Harry yelled. He flexed his hand and let the pain feed his anger. You don't know anything about me. You think I'm some good person or someone strong who deserves you to care about them, and I'm not. I'm not, okay, so just quit. Harry's chest was heaving with his harsh breaths, and Snape sat at his desk, with his hands calmly folded on the desk in front of him. Harry, the day I met you, I was under no illusions that you were what others would deem a good person, said Snape truthfully. You are a survivor, and survivors rarely survive without having to commit acts that others would deem to be unethical. This does not make you someone who does not deserve to be cared about. You are strong, and you are who you have been made to be. You don't know that, Harry snarled. You don't know a damn thing about what I deserve. I'm pathetic, he spat, and everyone knows it. How are you pathetic? Snape asked. How am I pathetic? I'm weak, Harry laughed. Do you see anyone else falling apart because of a few Dementors? Do you call anyone else crazy and say they need help? No, it's just me. I do not believe you are crazy, Snape said. I believe you have an untreated illness that is causing you undue hardship in your life. Bull. Snape held up his hand at Harry's interruption, and Harry flinched backwards. I apologize for startling you, Snape said, lowering his hand slowly. I of course will not strike you, Harry. You could, Harry offered. You could hit me right now and I wouldn't tell anyone. Would you feel better if I did? Snape said. Do you want me to hit you? Start a physical fight with my 13-year-old ward? Yes, Harry said immediately, his skin itching with all the anger and coldness and desperation wanting to escape. I wouldn't tell anyone, sir, please. Snape sounded incredibly tired when he responded. Harry, no, I'm not going to hit you. Harry flexed his hand again. Please. He knew he sounded pathetic, but he also knew he'd feel better if he could just feel again. Punching the wall helped to clear some of the fog, but an actual fist fight, that would clear it entirely. He was sure of it. I will never strike you, Snape said. Why don't you sit down and we can talk instead? I don't want to talk, I want. Harry couldn't even put into words exactly what he wanted. To be free, you want to be free. I gotta go, he said, backing away quickly to the office door. Harry, please, I will offer you any deal you would like if you will sit and talk with me for 10 minutes, Snape said, his voice laced with something akin to desperation. Harry paused. Will you hit me? Snape gave him the most disgustingly pitying look, and Harry knew what he was going to say before he even opened his mouth. "I will offer you anything that does not cause harm to you," he clarified. "I don't want to talk," Harry said, pulling his cloak out of his bag. "I'm going for a walk." "Wait!" Harry threw the cloak over his head. "Make me silent," he begged his magic as he ran out to the hall, his feet leaving no sound. "God damn it!" Harry heard Snape swear as he pointlessly chased him into the hallway. Harry made a beeline for the main doors, desperate to get outside. Argh! Harry slammed his fist over and over into the tree by the forest. He didn't block the pain out, he invited it in. With each and every strike against the tree, he could feel his mind getting more and more clear. "I care about you. Slam! You are incredibly important to me." Crunch! Grim was barking and growling and pulling on Harry's jumper, trying to pull him back. "Quit it!" Harry turned around and screamed as he used his good hand to push Grim's face away from him. Grim cringed backwards, tucking his tail in and letting out a low whine. His grey eyes looked wary and afraid as he backed away from Harry. "Look what you've done, you're a monster." No, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Harry felt something breaking inside as he saw the way that Grim was looking at him now. Grim was a dog, an innocent dog who had done nothing but comfort Harry, and what did Harry do? Scream at him. "You're a monster, you don't deserve to have a dog." Harry sunk down to the ground and opened his arms wide, now ignoring the sharp stabbing pain in his right hand. "See me a buddy, I'm sorry, please." He could feel his lip trembling with his regret as Grim slowly walked towards him, his tail still tucked low. Harry was as bad as the Dursleys. Grim deserved better. "Good boy," Harry said as he frantically pet Grim's soft black fur. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." He buried his face in Grim's neck as he shivered from the constant chill lingering on the grounds. "I didn't mean it," Harry whispered. "I'm sorry, buddy, please, I'm sorry." Grim pulled his head out of Harry's grip and tentatively licked his cheek. "I don't deserve you," Harry said. He buried his face back in the crook of Grim's neck and clutched him tightly as he felt the damned weak tears building up again. "I don't deserve any of it. I don't deserve Snape saying he cares about me, or Susan saying she loves me, or Luna stroking my hair at night. Grim, I don't deserve it, and I don't want to do it anymore," he said. "I don't want to be Emmy, I don't want to be here." Grim panted softly as Harry hid his weakness in his soft fur. "I can't tell anyone, what would they think? They'd think I'm weak, pathetic, disgusting." He sobbed on the last word as he imagined the looks his friends would give him if they saw him right now. Harry let every negative emotion out as he sat on the ground, crying into the fur of the one soul that knew him inside and out now. Once he was done, he just sat quietly, thinking, planning. "What's the point, Grim?" Harry eventually said quietly, cradling his face in Grim's neck. "I don't need to be here to save Theo, someone else could, yeah? Why's that gotta be my problem?" Grim let out a high-pitched whine, as if he could feel Harry's sadness himself. "And maybe he could." "Don't be like that," Harry stroked his back as he clung to the large dog. "It wouldn't really matter if I wasn't here, would it? Dumbledore'd find a new Voldemort fighter. Snape would have his house back. Draco could be Lord Black like his dad wants, and I'd be free. Grim, free. No more Dementors, no more fighting, no more memories or thoughts, no more feeling cold. Snape said dying is the end, and I'm ready." Grim howled loudly and began frantically twisting his head to face Harry. Harry fell back at the dog's movements, and Grim started licking his face. "Don't worry, Grim," Harry frowned. "Do you think I'd forget about you? I won't leave you alone again," Harry whispered as he scratched Grim's ears. "Nobody should be alone, yeah. I'm gonna leave a note and ask Lou if she'll take you in. You'll like her, buddy, she's the best." Harry buried his face in Grim's fur before he got to his feet and turned back towards the castle. Grim suddenly went crazy, started barking and pulling on Harry's sleeves. "Quit," Harry said, yanking his arm away. "You're fine, good luck, Grim." He felt his throat closing a bit as he considered the dog that let Harry pour his soul out and didn't judge him or share his secrets. "I'll miss you so much." Harry bent down and wrapped his arms around Grim's neck tightly one last time. Harry slipped his cloak over his head and started walking back towards the castle, firming plans in his mind as he went. He'd leave a note for Luna, let her know to come find Grim, and maybe take in Sevy too if she would. If not, Ron probably would. He didn't have an owl of his own. He would need to find a way to tell Snape about Theo's dad first thing tomorrow morning, then there wouldn't be any reason for him to stick around. He could be free. As soon as Harry put James' old cloak on, Sirius took off towards Hogsmeade as quickly as his 4 paws would take him. Not following Harry inside the castle was the hardest thing he'd ever done, but it would do his godson no good if Sirius was kissed before he had an opportunity to find someone to help Harry. And really, as much as he might not like it, after listening to Harry over the past few months, after seeing what he saw at the Quidditch match, there was only one person Harry had in his life that he trusted completely. There was only one person Sirius could turn to for help right now.